Hey guys, I am super excited about today. In fact, as soon as we started the Resilience Show, I knew right away that I want to do this episode. However, I want to wait a little bit till we got a little bit of traction because it's gonna be such a special episode. I'm here today with my friend, one of the most incredible human beings I know. I can go on and on, just kind of accolading that. But Azizullah Aziz, I want to make sure everybody understands that everybody's like, what's Aziz's last name? Your last name is actually Aziz. Azizullah is your first name. Aziz is your last name, your family name, AKA the nickname Aziz. The subject of my book, I say my book, our book, Saving Aziz. And if you guys don't have a copy of Saving Aziz, you have to get a copy. You have to read the book. Not because I wrote it, not because I'm trying to sell you a book. You have to read Saving Aziz. You go to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, anywhere books are sold. You go on any of my websites and find a link to get a copy. It's on audiobook. I read it on audiobook as a special piece at the end of the audiobook where Aziz and I are talking. Have to read it, not just because of Aziz and I, but because of the story of the withdrawal of Afghanistan and understanding where we are as America when it comes to our allies and important read. But man, I'm excited about this. Yeah, it's good to have you here in the studio, even though we see each other all the time. It's really good to be sitting here with you. This episode is going to be about your own fight for freedom. Freedom in your life, freedom in your family's lives, freedom in the lives of Americans that don't even know you, from a country you're never even from, freedom in the lives of your people in Afghanistan. And your story is just so rich, so amazing. I've gotten the chance to talk a lot about my time in Afghanistan, but a lot of people don't know the behind-the-scenes story of you or someone like you. And I really want this episode to reach as far and wide so people don't just get to know who you are. Mm-hmm. They get to know who a lot of the amazing Afghans that people like myself had the privilege to work with. And so I want to start off with your bio. Azizullah Aziz is an Afghan native who served as a combat interpreter and facilitator for the United States Special Operations Community during military operations in Afghanistan for 16 years. You speak 5 languages, including Pashto, Persian, Dari, Urdu, Arabic, and English. Yeah. You speak Texan now.
Yeah.
You began with working with U.S. Army 3rd Special Forces Group, then the U.S. State Department's Anti-Terrorism Assistance Program. Finally, you were recommended and hand-selected, which is a very big deal, to serve in a JSOC, Joint Special Operations Command task force assigned to a very special classified program at a premier Tier 1 Special Operations unit for over a decade. You've served as my interpreter, my personal interpreter, interpreter to some of my friends, and then primarily you and I served, not just, I wouldn't consider you an interpreter, but as my teammate in AFO operations, Advanced Force Operations. You've saved my life personally. My wife has a husband, and my children have a father, and so many things I got to do post-Afghanistan. It's been because of you risking your life to save my life, something I'll be forever grateful for. But I always say this, you didn't just save my life on those special occasions, those specific occasions. You've saved my life every day while we're out there. Don't eat that. Don't wear that. Don't walk there. Don't talk to that person. Don't talk right now, or they're going to kill us. You've just looked out for me and kept me alive so I could do my job there. You were officially recognized by U.S. Congress, and by the way, I'm pretty certain that you were the only Afghan I know of to receive such a recognition and award. But you're personally recognized by U.S. Congress for your actions in the evacuation of 4 U.S. Navy SEALs from a Taliban-infested village. That was just incredible, and I was right there with you and watched not just your bravery, but your just wittiness and willingness to just come up with a plan and make things happen. After over 16 years of service to the United States, you were the subject of the rescue operation to save your family and yourself by myself and some other Americans who decided to go back and get you. And that led to the rescue of over 17,000 people, which is the largest civilian evacuation in the history of the United States. And it's part of the book, Saving Aziz, which, by the way, is going to be made into a motion picture film. And I think you said you want The Rock to play you.
Yeah.
After 8 long months after the rescue, after 8 long months in the UAE Humanitarian Center, you and your family made it to America, the very soil that you helped defend for so long. And now you and your family are here in Texas, where you serve as the cultural advisor and SIV program manager for Mighty Oaks Foundation, which is a foundation I founded, and you're just doing an incredible job helping so many SIV, Special Immigrant Visa Afghans that served with us coming back here in the United States, and we're going to talk more about that today. you may be Afghan by birth, Aziz, but man, you're one of the most patriotic human beings I ever met, even before you ever came to America. One of the best people I know. Last but not least, you're a husband to Hatra, and you're a father to 6 amazing kids. Mashoud, Mashura, Mashhor, Mashora, Mashkor, Mashkora. Your 6 kids, or we like to call them M1, M2, M3, M4, all the M6. Man, welcome. It's awesome to have you on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for your opinion and your kind words. It's an honor to be with you and with the Mighty Oaks Foundation. It's been a great journey with the Mighty Oaks Foundation and serving the Lord together, working, saving lives, saving marriages, changing legacies. It's an incredible organization to be part of.
Yeah, well, we thank you. We never thought in a million years that you'd be working for Mighty Oaks, but here you are, man. And it's just amazing to watch how that all came together. As you know, the listeners know, and I think you know from being around, we have amazing supporters that make this show happen. We have our sponsors are Smith & Wesson Firearms, Vortex Optics, Gators Eyewear, Allied Wealth Group, BioPro Supplements, and then BioAccelerator Stem Cell Company out of Scottsdale, Arizona, that works in Colombia. Some amazing supporters. And by the way, most of the guys coming on the show are getting like Vortex Optics and a Smith & Wesson gun. We're not going to do that for you today because you hadn't got your visa yet, which we're gonna talk about. Well, you got your visa. You don't have your citizenship yet or your green card yet. And as soon as you do, Smith & Wesson wants you to know that one of your welcome gifts to actually becoming an American is going to be your choice of a Smith & Wesson firearm and Vortex Optic. We're going to put together something really, really cool for you. And we're going to work together and get something awesome for you. And we'll get it up on social media when that happens. Today we have for you a pair of Gators glasses. Gators Eyewear has been supporting the military or putting military eyewear together for 35 years.
Thank you.
Keeping guys' eyes safe on the battlefield and for all kind of awesome stuff. So I hope you enjoy those. But again, thank you for all of our sponsors who make this show possible. There were so many topics. We could be here for like a 12-hour episode. I won't do that to everyone, but I want to talk to you about how you grew up. I want to talk to you about escaping the Taliban in 1999 before 9/11. You have such a insight in the history of the Taliban. I want our viewers to understand the history of Taliban, how they became who they are. Serving as an interpreter and a team member, and especially in special operations at JSOC. I want to talk about your time after we left, your time alone, after your team that you'd been with for 16 years left. We want to talk about the evacuation, of course, your time in the humanitarian city, coming to Texas, living in Texas, what it's like being in America now. I want to also talk to you about Afghanistan now, like what it's like today, now that the U.S. military has gone from there and the international community has gone from there and the Taliban is in charge. And then I want to start off with growing up. Tell us what it was like growing up as a kid in Afghanistan.
Well, apparently in Afghanistan, at that time when I was born, the country was under the invasion of Russia already, which means that the wars were going on every day, day-to-day conflict, every morning, every day. Started it with gunfires, landmines, bloodshed everywhere. The school.
I got to pause you. You know why I'm pausing you?
Why?
Blood. I got to clarify. When he speaks sometimes, he says bloodshed, and we were in a church speaking, and you said bloodshed, and everybody's like, it sounds like you said black shit.
Yeah, that's
so bloodshed.
So it's not black shit, it's bloodshed.
Bloodshed. Okay,
yeah, that's funny. Yeah, sometimes my pronunciation is not that clear enough, so forgive me for that.
I'm from Louisiana, so I get it.
Yeah. So actually, one day I remember, like probably at the age of 6, I noticed that now I'm young enough to go outside without the permission of my parents. And we went outside and we were playing with these leftovers from the Russia. There were actually a few other children from the neighborhood. The same day I made friendship with them, and we were just kind of running around the Russian tanks, jeeps, and some other unexploded devices that were left near the cemetery. And suddenly one of the kids came with this game, tapping on the shoulder and telling us, now, if you're a man, catch me, he would run up front, and then we would run behind him and try to catch him and tap him on his shoulder. Otherwise, we wouldn't be a man to not take revenge from the child. And that day actually started it very with laughter, with a lot of joy, but ended with a lot of sorrow, anguish, and a lot of pain, which I still remember sometimes. That gives me a big shock. What happened was, when my turn came to run behind these children, they ran over to the cemetery, and we didn't know the cemetery was full of unexploded mines and military equipment. Suddenly, these children, they step on a landmine, and this explode. I lost 6 of my friends that day. A few were injured, and then because of the lack of medicines and lack of good quality medication and doctors, we lost the other a few as well. The Russians were still over there. The Mujahideens were still. Every day was a conflict. Every day in every corner of the village, there was an ambush happening. Like, for example, when the Russians convoys were coming from northern Afghanistan, they were trying to take the old Bagram road to go to Kabul and deliver all those logistics. The Mujahideens would ambush them from among the grapes, gardens, and trees on the 2 sides of the road, which gives them a very big protection. And then they would run away. But then the Russians, because they have casualties and they lost a lot of soldiers, they would become mad and they would start shooting mortar shells, RPGs, and their helicopters with choppers would come and bombard the whole villages. So life was very hard. And
hold on a second, Aziz, because I want to make sure everybody understands this, because in America, we're so blessed and privileged here. Our 6-year-old kids could go play at the playground and not worry about that. You're 6 years old, and you're running playing tag. We call it tag here.
Yeah.
And your 6 of your friends die. You talked about it like really quickly, but I think a lot of Americans can't even relate to that. Like a 6-year-old watching you've seen this happen. Did you get injured? What did it look like when this happened?
It was actually so when I was running behind these children, and we are all laughing. They are in front, and I'm in the back of them. Suddenly, I got exhausted. A force stopped me. And I thought with myself that I should take a break to take some breath and then run behind them with more energy and power. But during that a few seconds, I noticed that they were way ahead of me, and they already stepped on the cemetery, and a big boom. I heard a big boom. And the next thing I know is I was covered with dust. I lost my hearing, and I couldn't see. And I saw fragmentations over here from the sand and
like some rocks on your face,
rocks and everything on my fingers, on my hands. And after a few minutes, I saw my grandfather hit me with the big fist on my face, and he was crying. And then I looked, all these children on the cemetery, somebody doesn't have a leg, somebody doesn't have a hand, somebody is blind, somebody's head is bleeding. It was very tragic. And I saw all these mothers, all these fathers that they, from the valley, they ran to the cemetery, and they were hitting their faces with their hands, and they were crying, and they were saying, "Oh God, what should we do? What happened to our children?" And because I was very young and I didn't have an idea what to do, I was very shocked. And that was the moment that I learned that we are not permanent on this earth. Life is beautiful, everything is beautiful, but then one day this ends. And that was the time when I actually really started searching for God. Like, until that minute, I didn't know what's what. How, I had no information about God, about messengers, about religions, about the life hereafter. That was actually the kickstart for me to start searching for God. And when I heard that God is so kind and He's merciful and He is really powerful and He can see us, I was always searching and trying. Sometimes I would go to these mountains on the northern Kabul mountains. I would sit by myself. Actually, even in the childhood, I was totally a nerd. I wouldn't get along with the other kids much, like especially after that incident, because of the rage, the unhappiness. It took away all my joy from
Yeah.
that moment of childhood.
Is this common? I mean, this would be common that kids in Afghanistan would face something like this. Because I remember, I mean, this is a long time from when I went to Afghanistan. This was probably like, what year would this have been?
It was actually like 6 years after the invasion of the Russians that were over there.
So in the early 80s or
80s,
not 80s, in the mid 80s. So like, years later, I'm in Afghanistan 2003, 2004 through 2007. And I still see these, you drive through places and there's these rocks stacked up and one side the rocks are painted.
Yeah.
And that indicate there's a minefield there. Still mines left over from the Russians. And kids are playing all over.
Exactly.
And the kids know like, hey, I can play here, but I can't play here. And then there's been several times that we roll. I was with you. You rolled through a village and kids are injured and missing body parts or dead because of landmines. And so this is life as a kid.
Yes, exactly.
In Afghanistan.
Yeah, life as a kid, every day, like every morning it starts. Like sometimes during the week when we didn't hear rounds going off in the sky, and we were actually getting worried, like why there is no rounds coming off, why the fighting is stopped. Like maybe for a few days, sometimes they would do a ceasefire. So we were that much used to it. Like you would see the children carrying guns. Like there is a gun in each and every house over there. There are grenades in each and every house over there. Ammunitions, pistols. I mean, all kinds of guns.
Sounds like Texas.
It sounds like pretty much like Texas. Yeah, exactly. But except it's more negative over there. It's guns are not registered. You don't have permits for it. I mean, it's leftovers from the civil wars, leftovers from the communist regime, from the Mujahideen and the Taliban, and of course now after the withdrawal of the United States Army, and some other unexploded mortar shells. Like if you remember, I was showing it to you, like when we were going to Jabat on the side of the mountain. There are a few companies or organizations that they are trying to clear the mines from those areas, but that's a lot of mines.
Well, I remember we drove everywhere. We lived in our vehicles and driving everywhere across the mountains. And I've always had like a weak bladder, so I drink a lot of water. I'm always having to pee. And you had taught me like instead of getting out of the car to pee, just to kind of open the door and just I turn my body. It's because you walk out on the side of a road and. The Russians had airdropped like all through Khyber Pass and those areas. They just airdropped mines on the sides of roads to keep from getting ambushed.
Exactly.
Those mines are still there.
Exactly. Those are still there. And I still remember my dad, he would actually make mines from the grenades. Like he would open the pin of the grenade a little bit and run a string like from one side and put the grenade on one side of the wall and put the string on the other side of the wall. Like every night he was using these self-made grenades as a security guards. He was installing them around our house, especially when we were down on the village, northern Afghanistan, where by the Oldern Bagram road, because there was fear of the Russians coming to our house from the night. So he would install all kinds of mines to make sure to protect our family and the children and the area. And then at the same time, they would give us guns. At the very young age, they would give us guns to go sit on the roof all night in that hot or cold weather and just keep an eye open and observe, because the house was surrounded with these grapes, peaches, and farms. And it was very hard to identify the enemy. If he could easily walk from the highway and just sneak in underneath those bushes and trees and then do military operation from the night. It happened to many of the Afghans from the night. Like one night we were sleeping inside our room, the Russians shot a mortar shell. It was this big. Luckily we were all sleeping. I remembered that my grandfather is pulling me from the room, and I was really mad at him because every morning, early in the morning, he would wake me up before the sunrise. That was the habit of my family. wake me up to go and work on the farms. Two, for the prayer purpose. And thirdly, they were just making sure that everybody is engaged in doing something. But we hated that to wake up too early as a child. And that night, I'm like, dang, it's 2 o'clock in the morning, and now you're waking me up to send me to the garden. What kind of a cruel grandfather you are? And he cried. He told me, Aziz, you have no idea what has happened. He was dragging me from the home and brought me down. When I looked my face at the mirror, it was all black because of this mortar shell that hit on one side of the wall. But luckily, it didn't explode inside the room. We were on the second floor, and it actually exited from the other side of the wall and went and hit the garden. That's actually how the life was growing as a child in Afghanistan. Like, that's just one example. I can tell you several examples that I lived it. I lived it, and I personally saw it. I personally experienced it. It's really horrific. It's really heartbreaking. There was no education. There was no clean water. There was no actually medical system established over there. Like, I remember they were using opium as a medication for the children, because when the children, they would get sick because there was no medications available, there were no doctors available. The moms, they would just use a little small tiny piece of the opium and give it to the children, mixing it with the milk, so that they go to a deep sleep to stop crying. Because if the kid was crying, then the whole family was not able to sleep.
Right.
So, I mean, there is many other tragic stories, like shortages of food. I mean, like, I remember, like, they would give us one pair of clothes, and we would wear it the whole year.
Yeah.
Over here, I see children. I mean, shelves are full of clothes, full of shoes, full of sandals, sneakers, this and that, and they're still complaining.
Yeah.
In my time as a child, there was only one pair of clothes. And when it was getting dirty, you would take it out and you wash it. Even there was no electricity, there was no laundry machine. You would have to use a small bucket and use your hands and a piece of soap to wash your clothes and then hang it. And then there was no iron to iron it back at that time. I mean, there was many other challenges, life challenges, like uncertainties and unhappiness through the whole childhood over there.
I got to derail and ask you, because you talked about opium. I remember when COVID was happening here in the United States and everyone was doing vaccines and stuff like that. I'm thinking, like, what do they do in Afghanistan? So I asked you, like, hey, what do you guys do? Are you guys doing vaccines? Like, what are you guys doing in Afghanistan for COVID? And then you told me a story about how you guys took care of COVID there. What, we share that with us?
Yeah, sure. Actually, there is one of my cousin who was also a best friend of me, and he is married twice. He has two wives, and he's a businessman. He's very rich. But during the COVID, he actually got the COVID-19, and because there was this huge rumors that if somebody is affected with COVID-19 and you go near him, you touch him or you talk to him, it will actually automatically transfer to you. So all these wives, they were actually bringing food and water and everything, and they would just throw it inside the room for this poor guy from the very far distance, like if you would throw it to a dog. The poor guy is sleeping on his bed, and he's crying, he's sweating. There is a serious pain going on in his body, and his eyes are red, he's shaking. For almost 18 days and nights, this guy was on his bed, and because there was no medicines available, no vaccines available at that time, nobody would come near to him. So suddenly I heard about this from his son. One day I called him. I'm like, hey, how is your father doing? He's like, he's about to die. We are already digging the grave for him. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, he has COVID-19. He's affected. We're all away from him. I searched around. I found this local guy that he made actually a medicine from opium syrup. And he told me that if you give 1 spoon of this to anybody who is affected by COVID, he will be perfectly healthy within a few minutes. So I came to his village and I went to his home, and he's like, please don't come near to me. Please don't come near to me. I love you. I don't want you to get this. I'm dying in pain. I'm sweating. And I didn't care. I went and I asked his son to bring me a spoon, a big spoon. I poured this opium syrup and I stick it into his mouth. He was not getting it. He's like, what is this? Tell me. Well, I'm like, don't worry about it. Just take it. And after a few minutes, if you didn't recover, then I will pay you whatever penalty that you would charge me. He's like, okay. After a few minutes, some other guests came and we are talking. He was getting better and better. So I walked outside. I went I had a call, and then I went to the bathroom, and then I came back. I saw the guy is not inside the room. The guy who was suffering in pain for more than 18 days and nights. And then I look out from the balcony that he has this big shovel. He's digging the backyard in his house.
He's probably refilling his grave. He's like, I'm alive.
Probably that's what he was doing. I mean, that opium is that effective. If I'm not trying to promote opium here, but I mean, this is what we do in Afghanistan because of the lack of quality medicines.
Well, he's the Afghan Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
Ivermectin and opium. Yeah, you didn't hear it from me. But, so not only did you grow up with as a militant, I mean, as a kid, like put booby traps around your house and pulling fire watch for security overnight, and watching your father fight in the Russian war. You grew up in extreme poverty early on that didn't sit well with you, and you heard a story about learning English, and you taught yourself English at a young age, which ultimately is why you're here today. Which learning English changed your life. You didn't know anyone that spoke English. You never heard English before. You just knew you needed to learn it. Tell us how that happened.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, right after that incident from the childhood, like losing my friends, so I separated myself from all these other children that they were playing every day, and they didn't care about pain or challenges of the life. And I actually thought with myself that since we are not permanent on this earth, why should I not spend this life in a manner to benefit make some benefits, and then share it with my family and my brothers and siblings. And, I was always looking to find also a secondary source of income for my family, because my family was all dependent on the crops from the farms. Like that summer when the hail or heavy rain hit our crops, the whole year we were hungry because we would lose all the corn, grapes, and peaches and everything, and there was nothing left. So one day on the BBC radio, I heard that there is a natural gas pipeline going on from Turkmenistan. It's coming to Afghanistan, and then it's going to Pakistan, and then it's going to India. It's connecting the region by distributing the natural gas. But for this project, they need people who are capable of speaking English. Like they will probably need engineers, they will probably need interpreters. That was actually the starting point for me, that for the first time in my life, I heard about English language. Like before that, I had no idea about this language, that it even existed in this world. And then I learned about Americans, about the Europe, and then slowly. So at that time in Afghanistan, there was not actually teaching resources available. Like we didn't have internet, we didn't have electricity. The country was already under the civil wars. This was the time that the Russians withdraw, but the Mujahideens, they were divided into many different radical fighting groups that they were fighting among themselves. So the country was already in a chaos. And I was looking to find some resources to teach myself English. One, there was no institutes or courses or university or whatever. Secondly, no internet, no electricity. So suddenly I remembered that I should go and search these stationaries and public bookstores, private bookstores. But for that, I needed money. I used a wheelbarrow in the vegetable market. I carried loads for people who would buy like a package of vegetables, and then I would ask him I will carry it to your house and make a little money. I made some money, and I bought these self-learning English book.
How old were you?
I was around between 9 years old at that time. And I start teaching myself. Why? Because that was the only way. Teach yourself English. It has the English sentence, and then it has the pronunciation written underneath it by my own local language. Then it has some explanations how to use it, like past tense, future, verb, adjective, adverb, all these different things. And as I'm practicing and teaching myself this language, suddenly the kids in the neighborhood, they noticed that I'm walking and talking with a different language to myself. They all called me crazy. One, they hated me because I was not already getting into their playgrounds or playing every day, because I was focused and centered with myself because of the trauma that happened to me in the childhood. And two, they were just curious. They're like, "What's he doing? Is he crazy? Is he a fool? What's he talking about? Did he lost his mind?" Then after a couple of months, I got so tired of these jokes, these funny jokes, and making fun of me, these children. I told them to sit down, let's talk. I explained to them that this is English language, this is international language. If you learn it, and you can become a doctor, a teacher, engineer, whatever, all the medicines that you buy from the pharmacy, it's described by the English language. Doctors write prescriptions by English language. And then suddenly they all notice, they're like, "Wow, if you know something, why don't you share it with us, teach us?" I'm like, okay. In this playground where every day these children, they were playing with dust and, hurting each other, this playground was turned to the Aziz English Institute. That's how it started. And I ended up training about 800 students. But as the course was growing later on, I start charging them money. And their families, the elders in the area, they came, they appreciated me, they gave me a hug, they told me whatever I need.
You built like a little school, right?
I built, my own school. I rented some front shops on the side of the road in 15th region of Kabul. And I put a big sign over there.
I remember you talking about like making bricks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, that was before that. Like on that playground, what we did was I used my grandfather's wheelbarrow, a shovel, a bucket, and we mashed the mat. We made bricks out of the mat, and we made long chairs under the mulberry trees in the playground so that the children can sit on it while I'm teaching them. We didn't have a blackboard. We didn't have we didn't know whiteboards at that time. They were not very famous in Afghanistan at that. The only thing that we had was blackboard with chalk. But then later on, as the course was growing and more students were coming and I was making money, I rented front shops. I made a sign and I bought some wooden blackboards and chalk and chairs. And
At the biggest point, how many students did you have?
The biggest point was around 800 students. I trained them, and most of them are here right now.
But by that time, though, how old were you? Because you started doing this at 9.
Yeah.
And about how old were you?
But I started it actually like I was around 11 years old.
But when you started teaching?
Yes.
And then now 800 students, how old are you?
Yeah. At that time, I was around like 17 or 16.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I always just think that's amazing. And it's no surprise knowing you and your leadership and you're just kind of like just who you are. It's not surprising that, and so it's really cool hearing that backstory. But you're teaching at a time when the Taliban, and we're going to get into the Taliban, but you're teaching at a time when the Taliban is actually in charge in Kabul, and you're teaching an infidel language. There's a lot of rules, and you have an incident with the Taliban over teaching English.
Exactly. Like when the Taliban took over for the first time in Afghanistan back in the 1996, that's when they took over Afghanistan. They were actually originated from these radical religious madrasas, Deobandi madrasas in Pakistan. And one of the main reason when the Arabian countries and Pakistani army and then some of the international community countries, they helped this group to come to Afghanistan because Afghanistan was divided into small warlord empires. Like Kabul province was controlled by one warlord. Another province was controlled by another warlord. Each warlord had his own currency and his own flag, his own army. There was conflict going on. You were not able to drive or ride your bicycle from one province to another province. If you would do that on the road, you would get captured by these insurgents, militants, and they would steal all your expensive and personal belongings, your car, your bicycle. If you have a beautiful girl or daughter, they would confiscate it from you, and it was a hell. I mean, they actually stole young little boys from their family just by the name of that they are spying to the other party, and they were just making some things to steal, and then they would rape him and kill him. It was really
we're gonna
horrible.
get in. There's a
Yeah.
lot I want to learn about the history of
But-
Taliban from you.
Yeah.
But at this time, the Taliban is in charge in Kabul.
Yeah, and
you,
then-
you had this incident, right?
Exactly. The Taliban take over the country, and they actually enforced very strict laws. Like Afghanistan, it's like 97% of the people in Afghanistan, they are Muslims. And they told them that you have to go to the mosque 5 times a day. So if you were to have a business, especially a front shop, to run your business, then every probably a few hours after, close your shop, walk to the mosque for 13, 14 minutes, pray, and then come back, open your business. One of the evening, as I am teaching English, we had a conversation class, and my students are actually really enjoying it. And they asked me, they told me, hey, Teacher Aziz, why don't we just pull the curtains and we pretend that we are not even here? Let the Taliban, if they come, they will probably pass us by. And I said, okay. But because my voice is really strong from the childhood, so I got so excited teaching this conversation class, and I think they heard me from outside. They came upstairs with a cable and they tried to hit me. They blame me and accuse me of teaching and spreading the infidel language. And they told me that you have a few sins. 1, you are not closed at this time. You have to be at the mosque. 2, you are spreading out the infidel language. 3, you are just trying to increase infidelity in our country. And they told me so many things, and they tried to hit me with the cable. But at that time, I was young and strong. I was really smart. And I punched this guy on his face, and his nose started bleeding. And he tried to take out his AK from his shoulder to shoot me. And then I noticed with myself, if I stay, he's going to probably shoot me. If he doesn't shoot me, he's probably handcuff me and take me to the prison. I'm young, I have no beard, I'm a little young boy. And, Taliban, when they catch the boys, what they do with the boys at that time. And even now.
They raped them.
They raped them. They raped them, exactly. That they hate women, but they love little boys. That's what.
Yeah, I remember the thing is, that the women are for babies and the boys are for pleasure.
Exactly. They have this saying that 1, the boys are loyal. They say the Taliban. The boys are loyal. They stay with you forever. 2, boys are for sex, and women is for producing children. This is their actually justification for when you tell them that why you're doing this animalistic action. They reply you with that one. However, that's a barbaric group. So I jumped from the 2nd floor and I ran.
So you're in this fight. You jump from the 2nd floor to escape.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I jumped from the 2nd floor and I ran to this neighbor house. I lost my sandals. I had sandals, and on the way there was some glass or something that cut my heel, and I was bleeding. I saw this lady, she's washing clothes in her house, and she looked at me and she's like, are you Teacher Aziz? I'm like, yeah, I'm Teacher Aziz. Please give me some place to hide. The Taliban are behind me. They are trying to take me to prison. She's like, don't worry about it. My husband is a top leader of Taliban, and tonight when he comes home, I will talk to him. He will save you. Don't worry about those other Taliban outside. I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't want this to happen.
Now you're hiding at Taliban leader's house.
I'm running away from the Taliban. Now I'm taking refuge in the Taliban's house. But this family actually moved over there to the neighborhood recently at that time, and I had no idea who these people were. And she also told me that there's 2 of his sons, they are my students. when she told me that, then my heart became a little
Yeah.
comfortable. I'm like, now I have something to save. I stayed there for a couple of hours. The one good thing was at that time that once you ran from the Taliban and take refuge among the females, the Taliban would not come inside the house to search for you among the females. That they were actually banned. One of their rules was that time. And they were using the loudspeaker. They were calling my name. They told the guys across the street there was a bakery. They told the neighbors to tell this guy that he's not going to run away from us. We know his house. We know him. He has no other place to go. And Afghanistan was under the international sanctions. Afghan passport was just like a useless piece of paper. No country would issue a visa. So I came to my house and talked to my parents, shared this story with my parents, and my father told me that there is this human trafficking guy at the end of the street. He has 39 guys with him. He is going to Dubai. Why don't you join him? Go with him to Dubai. Long story short, I joined this human trafficking guy, hugged my family with tears, just a backpack, a little cash, and all my institute and course and students and everything. I didn't even get a chance to say goodbye to those guys. With tears, I left my country. I had to go to an exile that time because of the Taliban.
Tell us the journey. I mean, it was a crazy journey, right?
Yes. So what happened was we went to this human trafficking guy. He had these station wagons, and he actually put all these 40 guys in different station wagons. We squeezed in. We drove from Kabul to Khost province, and then from Khost province we went to Miramshah, and then to Banu. We spent a few nights, a few days. On the way from Banu to Karachi, we got mugged in by the Pakistani police. They searched all our pockets, our shoes, even our private parts. They took all our cash, and they said very abusive words to us because we were there in their country without a visa and passport, and we couldn't even claim about what happened to us. We were afraid if we raise our voice, this will create another problem for us. Our plan was to just get to Dubai as soon as we can. And then from there, we spent a few nights and days in Karachi. From there, using the Balochistan area, very dangerous areas. We spent nights and days without food, without water. We had nothing to wash our clothes. And our money was all taken away by the Pakistani border police. So finally, we made it using these connections of the human trafficking guy. Finally, we made it to Iran. In Iran, they dropped us in a forest. It was a forest near the ocean, the Gulf waters. We spent nights and days. Now this from there, the human trafficking guy, he brought a phone so we can contact our families to send more money to the human trafficking guy so that we can spend it on the road. And these Baloch people from Iran during the day, they bring us food, water, sodas, all kinds of things that we need. We pay them money. At night, they use their AK-47s and they wrapped all their faces and their heads. They come and they torture us and they ask for money. Like every night, I would bury my money under the sand. That place was near the ocean. It was full of sand. So I had a little cash wrapped up in a plastic and I was burying it under the sand. Then I would sit on it. These Baloch people, they will slap on the faces. They're like, where's your money? Search our pockets. And when they don't find it, they would slap us. And then we would tell them that Pakistani police robbed us. They got all our money. We got no more money left on us. We, for God's sake, have mercy on us. But they were not merciful. And I could easily identify them from their eyes, that it's the same guys that during the day, they bring us food, water, and they sell it like for example, if a bottle of water is $10, he would sell it for $100 for us because we are being smuggled into to a different country. I mean, there was nobody to hear our voice. I mean, nothing was available based on the human rights or something like that. So finally, the human trafficking guy was capable of finding these small little boats, and he distributed all these guys into two boats. The way from the Bandar Jaws of Iran to Oman was only like 4 hours, but because he's afraid of the border police, he took this edge of the ocean, and he made it like more than like 12 hours. We made a 12 hour of ride on the Gulf waters to make it to Oman, but suddenly the boat ran out of gas and the sky turns stormy, cloudy, rainy, and we're just in the middle of nowhere. We cannot see dry land. It was very disappointing. And that was my first time I was actually physically sitting on a boat, watching and experiencing the life on an ocean. And plus, I don't know how to swim. It was very, very disappointing. So the wind and the storm and would hit this boat. The boat would go up all the way up and then come back, drop on the water, and all the water would come inside the boat. Then we had these our caps or hats. We would use this to take all the water out of the boat, and we spent the whole night like that, crying, praying. I mean, somebody was saying abusive words to God. It was a chaos. Finally, in the morning, like it was around 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, we noticed that we are back at the same spot where we first got on the boat in the morning. Like this human trafficking guy, he was so happy. He's like, "Oh, your prayers are answered. God moved us all the way from the middle of the Gulf waters to this area." So we had to spend a few more days because this guy went to take gas to fuel up the boats, and then finally we made it using the trash tracks. They packed as like if you would pack brick, one line, and then on top of it, human on human, using the trash tracks. They smuggled us in from Oman to Dubai, and they dropped us over there. And they said, "That's it. This is Dubai." And he left. Now we have no money. I ended up with 39 guys that they are not able to speak the language in Emirates. They don't know how to speak Urdu. They don't know how to speak Arabic. They don't know how to speak English. All they know is Persian. And Persian is only like a 2% spoken in the United Arab Emirates. So we are very disappointed. We are sleeping in the parks and we are guarding each other. We are eating out of trash. Suddenly one day I noticed this, and Dubai is a place where a lot of tourists come over there, especially Europeans. I saw this European tourist that he's sitting by a chicken wrap shop. They call it chicken shawarma over there. And he's eating and studying this newspaper. And as soon as he walked out of the table, he had some leftovers. I ran to this. I ate the leftovers. And I take this Gulf news and I study it. I see that there is a vacancy. They need a house by a Christian family. And there is a phone number. And this actually gave me a hope. I ran to my friends and I asked them, who has money? And somebody took a little money from his shoe and gave it to me. So I went to this shop. I bought a phone card that you use it on the phone booth. You stick the card and then you dial the number.
Right,
you
right.
dial. And this beautiful Christian lady, she showed up. She came to me, but I explained everything to her honestly. But then now she's not going to hire me because she says, you don't have a visa, you don't have a passport. If I hire you, she said, I will be in big trouble from the government, from her husband, because her husband was a Muslim. She was Christian, but the husband was Muslim. But because I insisted a lot, and she had this beautiful Christian heart, and she was a very, great lady. She had mercy for the poor. She gave me the job, but she, based on one stipulation, she said that you cannot talk to my neighbors, you cannot talk to my husband about your documents or anything, and you're good to come and work here. I said, okay. So I started working for her part-time, and the other part-time, I got this money from her, went to the Dragon Chinese market and I bought some Rolex watches, some duplicate watches, some glasses. I mean, all those souvenirs and gifts that the tourists would buy and take as a gift to their friends, family, and relatives. Making some money here, making some money there. For almost a couple of months, this money is coming, feeding all these 39 people until we were finally able to find jobs for them. Somebody got a mechanic job, somebody got a shoe polishing job, somebody got a job in the kitchen of a restaurant, somebody else got a job another place, and finally everyone had his own room and job and everything. And then suddenly one lunchtime, I'm sitting and I'm just having lunch with a bunch of my friends, and I'm watching to TV, the CNN TV. I was watching a lot because of perfecting my pronunciation.
Yeah, for English, yeah.
The English, yeah, I loved it. And I saw the 9/11 happen. That chaotic and tragedy happened, and I had no words for it. I'm like, I don't know what to say. And then right after that night, I called my dad and we talked to each other. My dad told me that, Aziz, you learned that English for a reason. And that reason is in Afghanistan now. You have to come back to Afghanistan because now the Americans have landed in Afghanistan. They are building the Afghan National Army. They are building all the government institutions. They are building many other different projects are going on. And so I had to come and be part of building my country, helping my nation, which the desire that I had from the very childhood in my heart to see Afghanistan grow, to see the flag of Afghanistan among all the other flags that in the United Nations, in the those nice and luxury hotels that I saw in Dubai. And I mean, that was the first time for me that I saw that there is much more in the world than what we were seeing just in Afghanistan, in this landlocked country over there. Like by the migration, I learned a lot. And my desire, my passion for my country became more stronger and stronger. So I went to now, because I don't have a passport or a visa, I cannot even directly fly to Afghanistan. Now this is the time, because of the United States presence in Afghanistan, now the Afghan passport is valid again. The neighboring countries, the Gulf countries, the Arabian countries, they are issuing visas for Afghanistan. They are allowing Afghan plane to take off and come land on their soil. But for me, I have no document.
One, yeah.
I cannot. I thought with myself, what should I do? Finally, I went to this police station that was near in Deir Dubai, the Muraqabat police station, and I told everything to this 3-star
Surrender, turn yourself in.
general. Yeah, I explained everything to him. How did I got here? All those years, they are spending millions of dirhams to find out how these people are coming illegally to their country, but yet they were not able to know the routes, the people who were involved, the countries that were involved. And because now I want to turn to my home and I'm being really honest to this guy, I give them all this information for free.
This to the general, right?
To the general, yeah. And he was so happy. This general, he stood from his back of his table and he walked around his table. He came to me and he gave me a hug. He hugged me and he told me, Aziz, I really like you. I want to give you a job. You are so smart. We need you. This country needs you. I will hire you in the police academy. I will give you training. He said, I will give you a good salary. I will issue a visa for your family. And at that time, I was only engaged. I was not married. I told him, sir, please send me back home. I need to see my family. I need to get married. Then I will get my passport and send it to you. You can send me the visa, then I will come. He's like, are you coming for sure? Everything happened through a handshake. I'm like, yeah, I'm coming back, but let me go first home. And he made all the documents and everything for me, outpass from the Afghan embassy. And I was put on the plane and sent home. When I landed in Kabul, because now Kabul, everything is new, all these people, these customs people, they robbed me. Bakshish. Bakshish is a big thing.
The tax or the bakshish is the bribery money.
Exactly, because the government institutions were all, it was a big failure because of all those civil wars and everything. Nothing was in its place. Now I have these 2 bags full of glasses, Rolex watches, binoculars, all kinds of souvenirs. And they thought that I brought this for benefit. I'm like, no, this is not for benefit. This is my money. I bought it. I was selling it. But now, because they deported me to my country, I have to bring it. But all these customs guys, they stole everything from those 2 bags. They didn't even leave me a Rolex watch so that I can give to my dad or my father-in-law, at least. Those cruel people. So I had to walk out from the airport. I came, found my family, and got married. And then I went straightly and directly to the Kabul Military Training Center.
Before you say that, before you get into military, we don't have to take long with it. I just think it's such a beautiful story. When you fled Afghanistan to go to UAE, you had already promised Hatra, your wife, that you would come back and marry her. And
Yes.
so now you're back and you keep that word and you marry her.
Yes, exactly. Like that night, when I had to abandon my close ones, my loved ones, and my country, I did not even get a chance to see my fiance. We were living in the same neighborhood. Like
She waited for you though.
yeah, she waited the whole night for me, but I couldn't get a chance to go and see her. And then I wrote a letter. And then later on, like very early in the morning before that night I leave, I put it behind her. There was actually a window in the back of their house. There was a bathroom and there was a screen. So sometimes like I would go over there and we will just hold hands and talk to each other from the night, because during the day, a girl with a boy was not allowed to walk with each other hand to hand because they would get stoned. It's a cruel regime of the Taliban.
Just you guys looking through holding hands through the window like that you're risking your life to.
Exactly. I could have been shot. I could have been stoned by the neighbors, by the Taliban. Traditionally, culturally, it is very offensive to go behind somebody's house and hold hands with their girls or talk to their girls or see the face of their girls, because this was the time that the women were really oppressed and they would cover them with burqas.
So like most weddings would have been arranged, but I remember you saying one time you had you kind of originated the love marriage in Afghanistan by you and Hatra meeting that way.
Yeah, actually, she took my heart just in one glance of the eye. Like across there is a road in the middle in between both of us. On this side of the road, she's living in these Russian-made blocks because her father was a communist colonel, and they give him this apartment. On the other side of the street, it was my English Institute on the 2nd floor. So every day when she was walking on her yard, in the backyard, I could see her easily, and she could see me. And then something happened, and she took my heart. And, that was the time that I had to talk to my family and send my mom to them. But my mom, she was agreeing with that because of the cultural and traditional differences between my family and her family. My dad was not ready for this marriage. He got so mad at me. He's like, no, it's not possible. What will I say to the people? Because over there, everyone is trying to be really strict and standing with holding their old traditions, because they don't want their blood to be mixed with other tribes or other people. And on the other hand, I'm from the Pashtun tribe, and they are from the Tajik tribe, and my father is a Mujahideen, her father is a communist. I mean, there were many other differences. But I broke the line and I paved the road for all the other generation after me. Most of my cousins, they did love marriage. Like up to that minute, somebody had to break the
Yeah.
break the rules. Like my father, he didn't participate in my wedding. He was mad at me for 3 months, even after my wedding, because he thought that, I give him a bad face among the tribe, the values, the traditional values that they were holding to it. Sometimes the traditional may seem or look good or positive, but when you are born with it, when you are raised with it, it means something. It's values, it's cultural values. But I broke those rules.
Yeah, and Hatra's one of my favorite people. I love Hatra, so
Yeah.
you made a good choice. So we're going to jump into the military, but before we do, we'll take a quick break to give a shout out to some of our sponsors. Hey guys, 10 years ago, I had found myself in a position to where investing in Mighty Oaks and all the different things I'm involved in, I had found myself not prepared for retirement. And I went to my friend Ryan Wheelis at Allied Wealth. He had been a longtime supporter of Mighty Oaks Foundation. From the beginning, he's one of our first donors to Mighty Oaks, has been a friend for a long time, and I was really trusted him, and he has helped me build my retirement and invest in my future through his company, Allied Wealth. He's one of the smartest guys I know when it comes to wealth management, and has taken money that I had stuck away in 401ks that was not really producing and made it produced tenfold. And I'm so happy with the results for me that I asked him to partner with this show, and he is a partner of this show now. And we want to not only let you guys know about Allied Wealth, but we're going to be doing some special episodes on wealth management with Ryan helping co-host them. I say co-host. I'm going to be asking him questions, and we're going to be providing you information on how to best manage your wealth. So if you're like me and you need someone to help you with your retirement, with your investments, with just your overall wealth management, go to alliedwealth.com and meet Ryan and his team to get you set up. Guys, I'm a lifelong athlete. I've tried all kind of things, from every different diet, from all different supplements, tons of different things to make my body as healthy and as functional as possible. I don't like taking just random supplements off the shelf. It just is either short-lived or just not good for my overall health. So I look for natural things that are actually bioavailable to my body. I heard about BioPro years ago from jiu-jitsu athletes, from UFC fighters, and they're all friends of mine who I trust that were telling me, you have to try a BioPro, and I did. I experienced a tremendous result, mostly in my sleep, to where I was sleeping 4 or 5 hours a night, to where I immediately went to sleeping 9 hours a night. BioPro has helped my recovery, my mental focus. There's a daytime formula, there's a nighttime formula. You could take one or both. I am a believer. I love it, or I would not be promoting it. If you're interested, go to bioproteintech.com and get yours today. You come back to Afghanistan, marry Hatra, and now you're going to serve your country and lock arms with the United States military. You start off at 3rd Special Forces Group. You go from there to the State Department for the Anti-Terrorism Assistance Task Force, and then you're selected to go to a JSOC task force and serve with what I believe to be the premier special operations unit in the world. And not only did you were not just one of many, you were specifically brought in this very special program, and that's where we met.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that morning when I came and I saw you were already over there, and I actually liked you by the first meeting of that morning.
That's good. It's good. A lot of people don't.
Yeah, as they say that in Afghanistan, they say where the heart goes, the foot goes. And when you and we walked around the compound and we did some recon, and I was actually showing you the properties because you didn't know all those properties.
Yeah,
I mean, I drove you around in the city, and after that, you became with actually big list of construction. Now we need concertina wires, we need this, we need that, and something that I never had a military experience that much, like American military experience, and all those security measures for the walls, for the gates, the obstacles before the gate, all those things I learned it from you. And it was actually such an amazing time that you and we spent in Kabul, outside in the provinces, and then on the other side of the border in Pakistan. And that incident, encountering the bad guys that day in Badikou.
Yeah.
And man, I'm still sometimes I'm thinking about that. I mean,
yeah, I've shared the story a couple of times, but you can share it if you want for those. I mean, a lot of people listening right now maybe never heard that story about us we're we're going after a top 10
Yeah.
guy, number 6. I actually talked about it on Sean Ryan's show, like going after this guy, and it was just you and I out there for
Yeah.
weeks building that.
Yeah, that
target.
old guy that he came up and he told us that, hey, there are the bad guys. They are looking for some foreigners,
Yeah.
foreigners in the area. And he told me, and you're like, what's he saying? Remember every time when I was talking to a local and you were so anxious in a hurry to tell
Yeah.
you what's he saying? What's he saying? I'm like, brother, wait a minute.
Well, yeah, because I know I'm like learning Dari and I can understand, but as soon as you start talking to Pashtun,
Yeah.
I had no idea what you're saying. I'm like, I'm lost now. Like, what's in? You can always tell when
Exactly.
something serious is going on. And I'm like,
Yeah.
it seems serious. Like, what's he saying?
Yeah, as soon as he told us about that, and I explained to you, and you were so normal and so cool about it, I was actually feeling inside my heart that you would probably tell me, let's run away from this place. Let's get refugee underneath the bushes or hide somewhere in the forest. But, I didn't see all that. You were all ready for combat, and you were all ready for the confrontation with these bad guys. And then when that first round knocked off on our head, and that was the time when we exchanged our guns. And I don't know what happened after that, because sometimes, like during these real confrontations with the bad guy, I think I didn't have the control of my body. Shooting that guy with the RPG
Yeah.
that he had on his hand and pointing at us, I had no idea.
Yeah.
Like, if right now, if you tell me to go and shoot that, I mean, like, if I know in advance what's happening to me, it is very hard. But at that time, like something unexpectedly and very quickly, it happens to you. I don't know how God moved my body, my hands, my brain. I have no idea. And even at that time, I was just remembering Kathy's voice that she told me to take care of my shorty for me. I like, what, God? If something happens to Chad, what would be my answer to Kathy?
Yeah.
Every minute in the danger zone, when I was remembering that beautiful American womanly voice,
Mm.
man, I was ready to put my life for you and take
Yeah,
the
it was
bullet for you.
man, I just I'll forever be grateful for that day, because for those that don't know the whole story, what happened is we 20 to 30 Taliban guys, and it's just Aziz and I about 100 yards away, and we execute a Australian peel, or a lateral bounding technique to get off that field, and as I was firing and covering Aziz, would have been drawing the gunfire to me. An RPG came up, and I didn't see it, and Aziz stopped and exposed himself, which would have been pulling gunfire from me to him, and shot the guy before he fired off the RPG. And ultimately that RPG would have, just a sequence of how gunfights happen, and that, especially with that technique that we use, that's the reason you use the technique, to draw fire to you and cover the other person, and that RPG would have certainly came towards me and saved my life that day. Not only saved my life that day, but allowed the mission to continue. Because when we got back to the safe house, it was you that said, "Hey, we need to still stay here and finish this mission." And I think about 10 days later is when the command came in and killed number 6. And we had the authority or the say so to call it off and say, "Hey, we're compromised. Like, let's pull out, do it later." But you're the one that's like, "No, we're not compromised. That was just Taliban doing Taliban stuff in the area, and they thought a foreigner was here, so we're not compromised. Let's just stay here and finish the job." And we stayed. And for me, my confidence always rested on you. Like you were my litmus test. Are we safe to stay here? Can we still operate? Can we still be successful with the mission? And when you said we should stay, we did. And
yeah, like, remember when I told you that Afghan slang, like, when the snake is injured, you cannot leave a snake, injured snake in your backyard. We shot at them back. They shot at us, and that was a snake for me. They were actually injured. They were in the area, and they were going to, come back at us. So that's why I asked to stay, and let's take care of this business. Let's finish it. Let's clean the mess.
Yeah. That was a miraculous day outside of you. I think God's providence was there, because the the fact that you nor I was injured or hurt or not even seen one bullet land next to us. It was just
Yeah.
miraculous.
Sometimes the fear, that's where actually I learned that fear, there's always fear, but if you just save it and use it back against your enemy, it gives you power. The anger, the fear, the frustration, like sometimes we get, especially in those kind of conflicts, you just have to save it and focus on your mission and then use that energy, turn it back into your own benefit.
Yeah.
And that's what we did.
There's so many times like that I got to witness you in those type of environments. But one of the things that's just like a life-changing moment for me was outside of combat. It was outside of operations. It was a day, almost like really a day off. 2004, the presidential election of President Bush and John Kerry.
Yeah.
And you invited me to your home for the presidential election, and it was like a Super Bowl party. You guys had food, you had family, and I remember walking in like a U.S. election, and the results are coming in, and you guys were so glued to TV that I'd never seen them in my whole life as an American. I'd never seen Americans care about a presidential election as much as you and your family cared about the presidential election. And I remember when President Bush announced President Bush won the election, you guys were like not only cheering and clapping and screaming, but you actually start dancing. Just people start dancing in the house, and I'm like, what in the world? Why do these Afghans care so much that President Bush just won this election? And I asked you, and you explained it to me in a way that ultimately changed my perspective on global geopolitics and understanding how much a U.S. election affects other people in the world. You guys are saying if President Bush lost and John Kerry won, then they would, the changes that would come to Afghanistan, the withdrawal of the U.S. troops and the Taliban coming back and taking over, and how much it infected your family. And then you took me out to see this apartment building where you had a niece that jumped off in lieu of being raped by the Taliban, and you took me to the killing pool, which I wrote about, I've talked about in my books, and that I really appreciated that lesson so much. And behind us right now, every guest on the Resilience Show that's in studio here gets this kind of customized background, and this is your city, this is your home city, Kabul, which I lived in and spent time in, and you took me around the city. You took me for a tour. We went there, and I'm sure as we're panning here, the killing pool is probably somewhere in this picture.
Yeah. It's actually on the other side on top. Yeah, that pool was actually originally, it was, as I mentioned to you at that time, it was made by the Russians. They were actually the Russian officers. They were swimming with their families and children. But later on, during the civil wars, it became a torturing place. Like when these the Mujahideens or the Taliban, when they were kidnapping these young boys or girls, they would bring them over there, they would rape them, and they would torture them. They will take all their personal expensive belongings, and then they will kill them, and they will cut them into pieces and dump them into the flour sacks, and then dump them on somewhere near the Makroyan or Wazir Akbar Khan or somewhere in the ditches. Especially the heartbreaking stories of jumping from the windows, those young girls, like when the different Mujahideen groups, they came to Kabul, all these radical Islamists, those who were on the mountains for decades, they never saw a beautiful girl, the city girl. And when they saw all these beautiful girls that they were living in these Russian-made apartments, and they ran into these apartments, and especially my relative.
That's the building you took me to.
Yeah, exactly. And that poor girl, she had no other choice but to jump from that floor and all the way on the ground and to kill herself. And she's just an example. There are many other girls the same like her, that they were doctors, they were nurses, they were pharmacists, they were teachers. They were living in that area. They jumped from the fourth floor, from the third floor. They jumped and they dropped on their head on the ground and killed themselves, finished themselves, because those radical Mujahideen Islamists, they were going to rape them, and they raped a few of them. They raped people starting from the 15th district of Kabul. They spread it out all the way to the 3rd district. and to the central Sharnau area. Then they reached to the Makruyan area. Afghanistan women and girls, they are the top on the list of suffering from life, from being a woman, from being a girl. Like in every regime, when you see it, the girls are always oppressed and humiliated, and their rights are not, they are free rights that God has granted for the human being, and especially for the women, but they're not given to the women in Afghanistan. Imagine how hard it is to be a girl or a woman in Afghanistan
Yeah.
at any time, at
You
any
could be as young
era.
as 9 years old, being drug off to being sold to a 50-year-old man to be
Exactly.
raped every day of the rest of your life.
Exactly. They are born in a walled compound. They are raised over there, and then they are forced married at a very young age. And then that poor girl stays in that walled compound or house for the rest of her life, cooking, washing, ironing, and just serving the man of the house.
Sexually.
Sexually, physically, I mean, all kinds. And she doesn't even have her own rights, free rights to go by her own choice outside to the market street to buy something, or to go visit her friends, or to go visit her parents. It's
I
really crazy.
I heard a older Afghan woman tell a little girl, and this always stuck with me. Imagine telling a girl to make her life easier. Imagine you're an ant.
Mhm.
Because if you're an ant, now the house seems so much bigger. And
Exactly.
that level of like bondage.
Yeah.
You talked about freedom and democracy. I remember you and I were on this long car ride. We're going across the Khyber Pass, and lots of conversations we had in these times. And I heard you talking about freedom and democracy in a way that I had never heard anyone speaking about it before. And I remember as you're talking, I'm just letting you talk and hearing you talking about it, and talking about freedom for your little girl, for your girls who you hadn't even had yet. And you're talking about for your future daughters, them being able to have freedom and not be sexually slave like we're talking about, not be in bondage, not be forced married, be able to be a doctor if they want to be, or a teacher if they want to be able to be, what they choose to be. And you talked about this in a way that I had never heard even Americans speak about it before. And I'm thinking like, this guy is talking about this in a way that I'm just starting to understand it. Like as a 30-year-old man who's been in America my whole life, served in the military. I'm just starting, but he's never even experienced it before. He's never lived free. He's never lived in democracy before, but you understood it better than even I had. And I remember just being so like taken back by that. And it made me feel guilty. Like, why can't I appreciate something was born into the way this guy who's never even experienced it appreciated?
Yeah, exactly. It's there is actually a famous say in Afghanistan. They say that the hungry man understands the taste of food better than the man who is already had a full stomach.
Yeah.
I was hungry of democracy, thirsty for democracy. I wanted that for my children, and that was one of the main reasons that actually I sacrificed all those years and spending time with the military and working and helping in other segments, and all those years. It's actually a hard life, and you remember those nights, those days on the mountains without food, without water.
We were cold a lot.
Every single minute there was a chance of just being killed, the two of us and also the other teammates. Every minute was full of danger. I was not even thinking about the future outcomes of it.
Yeah.
Because this love and this passion, this desire that I had for this country, for these people, especially for the women in Afghanistan. And like, imagine like in Afghanistan, when United States landed, Afghanistan enjoyed the very best democracy era ever in the history of Afghanistan. The highways were paved. For the first time in Afghanistan, we were able to have our own cell phones. Like before that, if you were to make a phone call, you would have to drive in a taxi all the way to the neighboring country and take an appointment for days or 4 days after, your turn will come, and then use a Turaya phone to call one of your loved ones abroad. And now, because the US is there, now everything is there: internet, electricity, hospitals, private clinics, public schools, private schools, institutes, the American University of Afghanistan. That was actually a big win for the Afghans. I mean,
Yeah.
they had money different. There was also an American school was built, and for the first time, I was really enjoying. I was really loving what I was doing, because I was seeing my nation, my country was growing from because of that, whatever was happening in Afghanistan. And I never thought that we would lose it that easy, just by one decision.
Yeah.
We would lose it like that.
Yeah, we're gonna get to U.S. leaving, but I want to go to one part. Like I said, you and I have so much shared experience working side by side, on all these operations that we did in Afghanistan. But there was a moment in 2007 when you and I are both still there. It's the end of my time. We had Bashir, who was our teammate, betrayed us to the Taliban. Said several of our teammates captured, killed.
Yep.
Had a vehicle bomb driven into our house. I ended up being abducted by a foreign intelligence agency. You were compromised as essentially being an undercover operative for the Americans. You were compromised.
Yep.
And the operation completely changed at that point. All of the Afghans that worked with us in this secret program, our command rounded all you guys up, zip tied you guys, put bags over your heads, including you.
Yep.
Because we didn't know how big this compromise was.
Exactly.
And you spent several days,
Yeah, that orange suit and the little cold cage. Several days and nights I was.
which I hate. I hated that, and I wasn't involved in it. So,
Yeah.
but it was necessary.
Yeah.
It was necessary to find out who was good, who was bad, and you were not only exonerated from that and found to be like, okay, Aziz is still a good guy. He's on our team, but our command decided we're no longer going to operate the way we were. We're going to shift this over to the local nationals, and Aziz, because of what you've done for all these years, you're going to be in charge of it.
Yes, exactly.
And so you basically essentially took over what we were doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I took over the whole thing, Afghanistan, Pakistan. I mean, the whole thing. We had to come up with a new strategy. We start over from scratch, like, eliminate everything what we have and start over. Because of that, the rat boy, rat boy, we had to close everything down.
Who, by the way, for those who hadn't read my book, Saving Aziz, this guy that ratted us out, we caught him. He was arrested. He spent years in jail, in Policharki jail, Bagram jail, was moved to Saudi Arabia, and then in 2011, President Obama did a giant release and to include Taliban fighters, and released him back to the Taliban.
Yeah.
And he's still alive today.
Yeah, he's alive, and he's a very big guy. He's the commander of all that between the Logar and Kaust province.
Yeah. From 2007, 2016-ish, am I right? That's the 9 years that you operated. Is that about right? Or
that's exactly about right. Yeah, actually, I had to run this whole thing. I ended up having about 132 guys, like property managers, bodyguards, maintenance guys, drivers, conductors, brokers, business people. Some were directly hired, some were just based on the contract, and it ended in a situation where they just walked out on me.
So just people understand, we have these government programs, the local nationals being used to do it, and then when it's done, we're just like, thank you for your 16 years of service. Good luck to you.
Exactly. They didn't even
don't die.
Pay the severance pay. They didn't pay the severance pay, like according to the Afghan labor law. If you work at least like 10 years for an organization, you're entitled to a 6-month severance pay. I mean, everywhere globally you look at it, there is a severance pay for the people, because there are also people like, we didn't get a retirement plan, we didn't give a healthcare plan. I mean, all those times, all those years that we spend, and then they just leave you on the by your own at the end of the time. They're like, well, thank you very much for your service. We love you, and we know your address. If we need you again, we will come back to you and see you later.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
then
without
then they changed their phone numbers.
they changed immediately. They deactivated all their emails, changed all their phone numbers, and days and nights I tried to call them and ask them to at least respond to the USCIS about my special immigrant visa.
Right. This is important because so in 2009 we the United States makes a offer to all of our interpreters that this would be this SIV, Special Immigrant Visa Program, and if you complete a contract with the United States and serving as an interpreter or allied service member, that working with the U.S. military and a contract with the U.S. military, that in a 9-month process you will be processed to immigrate to the United States. And I don't know anyone that's taken 9 months for, but I helped you put this in 2016. You're in a special program, so you don't have a contract number because it's a classified program. And I know a lot of people that I've asked to help with, congressmen and senators and all kinds of stuff to help with your case. You've been recognized by Congress on the House floor for your actions. All this stuff with eyewitnesses and special operations, retired special operations guys, generals that give in letters for you. All this stuff. And this happens, you put it in 2016, and even to this day, as we sit here in Texas, you still don't have your approval.
No, I don't have it. I'm still waiting.
Yeah.
I'm still waiting on them to me.
That is a tragedy. And I, on behalf of America, apologize to you and to every Afghan that served alongside of us in combat for 20 years. How can we as a nation be able to gain the favor of allies in our foreign wars that America's part of if we don't do right by the people that help us, local nationals that help us? It's a tragedy, and I apologize. I've been through this, and I've been right there with you, helping you through it, and I won't stop helping. Look, anybody listening that cares about Aziz's case, read the book. Write your congressman and say, hey, this guy's case, Azizullah Aziz's case, needs to be completed. It's been since 2016. It's ridiculous. It's supposed to take 9 months. It's a crime. It's
the sad part is, like, right now we are safe here. Praise be the Lord, and we have a nice living here. But unfortunately, my children are losing the benefits because of not being permanent residents over here, because of not having...
I can't give you a Smith & Wesson gun today.
That's one. Like Mashhuda, she recently just finished her GED, and she is going to do cosmetology institute, study that one. And I took her to one of these institutes. She was rejected. Why? Because they told him that she's not a permanent resident yet. And she cried the whole day. She's like, and then my son, Sam, the same thing with Mashoud, and he actually applied for the scholarship. They rejected for that one because he's not a permanent resident. He's going to the Lone Star College to study computer science. He's doing like a 2 years program for the computer science, but he's not receiving the benefits, and he cannot take most of the courses. There is a lot of restrictions, and there is a lot of obstacles just because of not having the permanent resident documents.
Yeah.
It's not easy. I mean, like, they are growing on me. They are growing. They are losing their very best time of their life. This time that they should benefit. Now they are not my children. They're the children of this nation.
Yeah.
They will live here forever. They will work here. I mean, all those years that I was working and helping is...
You came here legally, by the way. And, unfortunately, those who come here illegally are getting more benefits than someone like you who not only came here legally, but served our nation for over 16 years and risked your life over and over and over again to save service members and to fight for people here. It is just wrong, and it needs to be spoken of. I would ask everybody listening right now, make a phone call to your congressman, write a letter.
Thank you.
After we leave, you spend years without any of your old teammates. And I came up in 2007, had a dark period in my life. Just because someone isn't wearing a U.S. uniform doesn't mean that they don't face the same dark aftermath of war. And you have been through so much in combat and operations and high risk. When the operation was compromised, now you're having to separate from your father and your mother and your family, so that way you don't bring hardship on them. Your family's at risk, and you're alone.
Yeah, it was as long as I was in the business, everything was really good and everything was moving nice and smooth. But after the shutdown, I was left with actually a lot of challenges, like having 132 guys that their food comes through the business that I run. And all those years that they are working for me, they are counting on me. And suddenly I had to come up with this idea and, let some guys go and close and shut down all these businesses and let all these guys go. But, it was not easy. So I had to use my own personal money to pay these guys as a severance pay. And because they were working for me, they had no idea.
They had no idea they were working for the U.S. government.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly, because I couldn't tell them, and I had to let them go and shut down the businesses. And then I had a small business going on in Sharjah. My brother made some really bad decisions, and I lost that business. And then there was another transportation business I was doing in Pakistan using my cousins. He actually, after the shutdown, he sold that business. And, they lost that money over there. But I was actually sitting in the house, and then I turned to drinking out of boredom, smoking, and then every day fighting, verbal fighting with my wife. And then as my wife is seeing that I'm losing all my reputation and the businesses are going down and everything, and the tribe is watching and they are making backbites in the back of us and behind us, and she's crying. And then suddenly she told me one day that why shouldn't I go and work? When I was working, I was not drinking a lot. Our life was very good. Our children were happy. We had our reputation. Everything was so good. But after that, everything went very bad and awful. And it was out of my control. And because I was not a godly man, all those years, I was a good brother. I was a good friend. I was a good husband. I was a good, businessman, but I was not a man of God. I never spent my time and my life with God. I never built that relationship that I really needed it at that time when I was left alone by myself. So, because I didn't have that relation with God, I referred to alcohol, to cigarettes, and nights and day, and that worked for 1.5 years. But after that, it doesn't work because the body is getting exhausted, and I didn't even know that I had PTSD. I got so fearful, depression, and anxiety, and because every day I was fighting and I lost my sleep, my hands were numb, my feet were numb, and my brain was getting narrower. So what I did was, one day I decided with myself that I will just go downstairs and lock my door and finish myself. Why? Because I thought with myself that everything that's happening negatively, it's, my kids are crying every day. I'm arguing with my wife. And instead of this, it is good to just finish myself. That way, without me, my wife and my children, they will enjoy the life. They will be happy. But I had no idea that how hard and challenging it will be for them without me, because I was the only man of the house to provide food on the table and provide everything that's needed in the life, because my children are very young, and as you know, I was separated from my parents and siblings in 2007 because of that Black Friday, and I couldn't go back to them. So at least that my children could get a support from my parents. But that day when I came downstairs and I had this bottle of Smirnoff, it's a Russian vodka. I opened it and I had this, like, all this bottle almost. And I closed the door. I loaded my Glock and I put it right here to finish myself. And at this time, Mashkura and Mashkur, the two little ones, one was like 3-year-old, the other was like 5 or 6, something like that. They knocked on my door and they called me Padar, Padar. What happened was, in my office, there were 2 laptops and they were always on turned on, and there was this little game that's called how to make your own pancake. So every time when I was going to that office, these two little kids would follow me and come over there, just sit behind the computer and make their own pancakes. And this time they were actually following me, but I had no idea. And I didn't see them. But as soon as, I was trying to shoot myself, I think God sent them to me. And that minute, I thought with myself, if I pulled the trigger and something was forcing me to pull it, finish it, finish it, finish it. But then something else, there was another voice in my head that was telling me, how about if you just pull the trigger right now? And first of all, by the noise of this round, you're going to scare these two young children. Secondly, when they see that what a coward dad shot himself, and for the rest of their life, they will not be able to enjoy the life. So because of these two children, I put the gun back on the table. I broke things, tore things, and then I took the gun and I shot all those rounds on the ceiling, on the ground, outside in the yard. I just took that anger out of my body by doing that. And, my wife heard that she came, my sons, the neighbors, the police showed up behind the gate, like, what's happening? Somebody's trying to kill somebody. But even though at that time I had a good reputation and good connection with the police, I told them, don't worry about it. It was me. I was cleaning my gun. I just shot some rounds and then they left back. But that was the time actually that God saved me. And what I did, I got connected with the social media from that time on, and I saw you. And I remembered how much dark times you experienced after separating from the team and the time and difficulties because of the first time, the second time, and every other time that I learned from you. This time, again, I learned from you. And I saw that how you were able to overcome that trauma. And now you're speaking, you're on the social media, you're traveling, you're helping other veterans who are struggling with the same kind of problems and issues. And I thought with myself, and instead of finishing myself, why should I not just follow Chad? And I really, to be honest with you, I got inspired by you once again. And I was just following what you were doing. And then I found some neighbors and in the area, and we were actually going to the mountains every morning. We were running. I started running, swimming, and I actually engaged myself in social activities. And that was the time that then finally I was able to start this business of the import export between Afghanistan and India through the air corridor that was made by the USAID, and all that fresh fruits, if you still remember from the old background road. I was buying all those gardens, packing the crates and packages and process them through customs and send them to India. India is a very big country. Those fresh fruits from Afghanistan, if you send like tons of them every day, because the population of India is so huge, I mean, it's less for them. Doesn't matter how many tons you send, still they need it. They love actually the Afghan fresh fruits over there. And then in the winter, I was doing the dry fruits. But then, one day I saw myself again in a desperate situation. I had no other choice but to just call upon God. If you remember how many times I texted you, how many times I texted Dan, or how many times I texted all the other...
this is the Afghan evacuation.
The Afghan evacuation.
2021, President Biden makes the decision to, do the complete withdrawal of Afghanistan. Kind of summarize it without let you say your part here. We had been there 20 years. The entire international community is participating in supporting the Afghan National Army and Afghan National Police to fight the Taliban. And overnight, through the Doha Agreement, without notifying the Afghan government, without notifying our allies, we make a deal to give the country to the Taliban, our enemy of 20 years. And in that, you got Bashir, who's contacting you, our old enemy, our old teammate turned our old enemy, contacting you. Your SIV visa is not coming through. You're stuck in Afghanistan. Your wife's in Afghanistan. Your children in Afghanistan. Your sons are going to be not only your life's in danger, your son's and your daughter's in danger of being sexually enslaved, and so we start talking about how to get you out. And man, I remember when that happened. Like I was mad on a lot of things for the withdrawal, and I didn't agree with the withdrawal, and there was nothing I could do. And I was just like, man, I'm not gonna let you stay there. And so we, talked to Dan.
Yeah.
Got some other friends together and made a plan to go get you and your wife, Hatra and those kids.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was you were telling me, you were sending me all those text messages. Dana was texting me all those nice messages. You both were trying to tell me that we are coming for you and we are saving you finally. And I was not believing it. Why? Because I was thinking that all those years that I have applied, I had the very best recommendation letters, like from the Resolute Support Assistant Commander, from James Edward, the 3-star general, but the USCIS is not accepting it for whatever reason. I don't know. And I was really hopeless and disappointed. So suddenly I remembered all my brothers in America, they're worshiping God through Jesus Christ. And because before that, I'm praying and praying and praying, I'm not receiving an answer. So I thought with myself that this is my last chance. I was not that strong man anymore whom I was once before. Now, when I look at my daughters, when I look at my sons at that time, I'm like, man, it made me so weak. My hands were shaking and my brain was not working. And I was very weak because of my daughters. I was see the death coming.
But if it's just you
Exactly. If it is just me, you know me better. I would just pack whatever ammunitions and guns I have in the back of my truck and run to the mountains and join the NRF,
the resistance.
Resistance. That's what we do, when worse comes to worse.
But your kids.
But my wife and my kids, man, it was killing me, that situation.
Because you're at the point where you're putting your daughters and your sons and your wife in checkpoints in your house, and you give them grenades and AK-47s and saying, if they come from here, that's where you're at, right? That's
exactly. This was actually the very last night that when I prayed and prayed and I prayed in the name of Jesus, and I asked him to remind all my American brothers what I really did for them, and because of that, now what's coming to me. So before I go to sleep, I went to the armory, I opened it, and I took all the AKs, the pistols, the grenades, that little shotgun that was left from you.
I
with
love that
the
shotgun.
Shells, everything. And I told my wife that you are using this corner with this gun, and if somebody comes, you just keep shooting at them. Don't stop. And then for my older daughter, I set up a checkpoint. For my older son, I set up a checkpoint. And then the base and the very top I set up for myself, but because a few nights before I was really stressed out, nervousness and an anxiety, and I couldn't sleep. Got so tired. I told my wife, I'm going to take a nap, at least for an hour or so. Just be careful. If something happens, let me know. And this is the night that actually all the 33 provinces of Afghanistan are captured by the bad guys. It was not captured, it was actually handed over to them.
Yeah.
Because the Afghan military was not allowed to fight back. The bad guys were coming in with their dirt bikes, and there were some guys who was meditating the process, and they were handing over all the military equipments to the Taliban. So the Kabul province was remaining. It was still under the control of the soldiers from the Republic time. And when I went to bed, it's a long story. I will just summarize it. Like in my dream, God showed me that how I was rescued by Dano, by you, and the waters and everything, the boat. And then like in the morning when I woke up that night, right after that, like a couple of hours, I received your phone call and you told me that, hey man, I'm in Washington, D.C. I'm talking to some very high-ranking people, and I don't care anymore. And I remember exactly why you said you don't care anymore. Remember, we were not allowed to be talking on the phone to
each regular
other
phone,
because of the classified version of the contracts that we were under in. And you were trying to give me this motivation to stay tight and strong, but I was dead from the inside. and you said that Dano and Joe Robert are on a plane. They are going to Abu Dhabi. You are in Washington, D.C., talking to some high rank official. You're like, I'm not going to let you die by yourself over there. And that was and you, at the end, when you told me, God loves you, man. And that was actually something that it awoken my internal body, because that night, how much I was praying, how much I was requesting from God to help me in this desperate situation, not because of me, but because of my daughters, my sons, and my wife, who had nothing to do with this. Now they would be sex slaves, or they would be murdered, or they would be kidnapped by the Taliban, and I had no other opportunity and no other. After several attempts to the airport, all those nights and days and those hours without food, without water, without spend days and nights in the parking lots. And then finally, when I decided that, I told you that, hey, brother, I'm not able to get into the airport.
Yeah.
Because of all that crowd.
Mm.
And then because of the appendix operation of my wife, that her wounds were infected,
Bleeding, yeah.
bleeding, and she was not able to walk with me in that
I remember
crowd.
being on the phone with you, and I'm talking to you through, and I could hear them shooting, and you're like, hey, the kids are scared.
Yeah. That night, if you remember, over there it was night. Here it was probably day.
Yeah.
But you told me to hold on. You're not going to Tajikistan. You said you're going to make some phone calls first.
Yeah, I was like, I was trying to remind you who you were, man. Like, you can't quit. Like, your family's depending on you.
I was quitting because my wife didn't walk with me. She's like, I would rather die inside this taxi in the parking lot instead of dying under the feet of the people around that airport. It was very hard. Like, every time when I tried, like, I have all my daughters on this shoulder, I have my sons on this shoulder, and my wife on the back of me, and my AK-47 is hanging underneath my scarf, and the pouches and everything else. And we are trying to, it was very hard, like, to squeeze in and just like a package, enter that crowd. I was afraid, how about if I lose my daughter, if I lose my son? Many of the families, it happened to those poor guys.
Yeah.
The husband ended up in Kuwait or Qatar or Abu Dhabi, but the wife couldn't make it through the crowd. She stayed back. The daughter made it to Germany, but the son was still left in Kabul.
Yeah, we seen some together in UAE.
Yeah, exactly.
Remember you and I were talking
remember when we were interviewing those guys and
those
getting
boys
information?
that got separated from there. Yeah.
It was.
But I remember, we get you out, and by the way, man, shout out to the pararescue unit, the JSOC pararescue unit, because that's who actually got you through the gate. And in fact, I will be speaking to them on Thursday. That pararescue unit, those guys that high and those other guys go and speak to their unit on Thursday. So it's really actually Friday. I'm traveling out Thursday. I'm speaking to them on Friday. So it'd be really cool, and thankful for those guys, because you get you through the gate there.
Exactly. That day when they sent me a link to go over there, I tried it again with my children, but I was not. It was not possible. So what I did was I left my children over there in the car, in that little taxi that belonged to my brother-in-law. And I told Dano that I'm going to go by myself, but, I will take care of my family later. I remember when Dano told me that, hey, Aziz, it's your family. I don't care if you want to bring him in. But I think he didn't understand what I was trying to tell him.
Right.
Because it was not possible to go together the first time.
Right.
You got the Taliban checkpoints. Then you got the 0 units checkpoints. Then you have all those young Marines over there that they themselves were scared, because with that outfit and with this big beard and everything, they probably thought that I'm one of the Taliban or bad guy.
For sure.
For
sure.
And then when I saw the friend of yours, and, from the 50 meters distance, he was out over there for me, looking to find me, and I shouted at him. I'm like, hey, I called him by his name. I'm like, hey, Sean. He never heard it, because he had all those, the military had the earphones and everything, the headphones. But then I called my name. I'm like, hey, Aziz. Then there was another guy with him. His name was Alex. He told him, "Hey, that's our guy we're looking." And then as soon as I tried to cross the road, the Taliban and the zero units guy, they start shooting at me. Like, poof, 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 they shoot at me. Then he told them, "Hey, if you're not shooting, that's my man over there. I'm out here for him." And then I had to get these soldiers, go out and escort my family. And then I had to receive the phone call from Dano to rescue that girl from the American University of Afghanistan.
Yeah, you and your family get in, and then you go back out to help us.
Yeah.
Help us put you back to work already.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, like if people want the whole Afghan story, go grab the book. It's on audiobook. Aziz and I are on there. That's a couple other things I want to get to. One, we get you and the family to Abu Dhabi. You guys stay there for 8 months, right? About 8 months.
Yeah, about 8, 9 months.
8 or 9 months.
Yeah, less more.
And you and your family, in it's typical Aziz fashion, take over. You become the president of Humanitarian City.
Yeah.
Take over, organize the whole thing, help the U.S. State Department to process people because that's just who you are. But before you leave Abu Dhabi, there's this moment that you and I are together. We're outside in a courtyard in Abu Dhabi at the Humanitarian Center, and there's these kids playing, and they're happy, and there's like thousands of people there. We went there for you.
Yes.
And then 17,000 people get rescued because of our heart for you. And I like in that moment, like I was so emotional, like sitting there with you, and I wanted to communicate to you, like because you're such an amazing human being, because we love you so much and you're our friend, we came back for you, and because of who you are, the result was these thousands of people whose lives were saved, not by my will, but by my hand or other team, by just this miraculous act of God. By the way, I believe this. I'm not smart enough to pull this thing off. Like what happened was a miracle, but it was because it's sparked because of you. And then you said something that was so profound to me. All those years of you waiting for that special immigrant visa, me going to Congress, me going to Senate, us pushing the envelope, praying for you to get that visa. All those years it didn't happen. You said God's timing is better than our timing.
Yes.
Because if we would have, I can't remember exactly how you said it. You remember?
Yeah, I remember. Actually, what happened was when I saw all these soldiers, the KK guys, the KPF guys, the Zero Unit guys, all these other media team that was actually raising awareness and promoting democracy in Afghanistan. But because of the withdrawal, they would be dead, all of them. If this was not about you, the Save Our Allies, and Dan Stinson, and all the other brothers and sisters that were with you in this team, and they would be all dead. And suddenly, in my heart and in my mind, I remembered when I was looking at these children that how happy they were, and they were playing, and they were all saved. But then I also remembered at the same time all those other soldiers and interpreters, contractors who couldn't make it. They got killed, they got tortured. And I exactly told you that, brother, all those years, remember, we all tried to get me out of Afghanistan and bring me to United States. One of the main reason or one of the main answer to my question that I found that minute was that why my special immigrant visa was postponed. It was postponed for a reason. And I think it was God's plan for all of us, for all those lives, thousands of lives that were saved. If you were able to save me in 2016 and before that or after that, but then who would come and put this team together to go back to that place and save those thousands of people? All those people that came through the 14 Liars, through the Mercury One, through the Raven Group International, saving our allies. It all made it possible because of all this team that you guys made together to come to save me and my family, but then ended up saving this thousands of people. And exactly God's timing is perfect. And when I learned this actually in my life, that when you are trying and asking for something for yourself or your family, but when it's not happening to you, there is a reason behind that.
Right.
And whether people believe it or not, for me, that's a miracle of God.
Yeah. When you said that to me, I just thought how selfless of a statement that was. That, but it's true.
Yeah.
So You're here in Texas. I remember the day you got here. It was such a special day to me. Kids get settled. Masharah gets here, and it's an Afghan girl who joins Marine Corps ROTC.
Yeah.
Mashhur starts playing Texas football. He's still playing Texas football.
Yeah.
Mashuda's teaching karate.
Yes,
Taekwondo. She teaches taekwondo.
Yes.
And Hatra, I remember you called me and said, I got to go drop off Hatra at work. I'm like, do you need money? Like, why is Hatra working? No, she wants to work. I'm like, where's she working at? He said, McDonald's. I'm like, man, like, I know people. I get her a better job. Like, no offense to anybody working at McDonald's, but I can help her get a better job. And you're like, no, you don't understand. Like, she wants to work at McDonald's. It's like an American thing, experience. And so you guys got all these experiences. I remember like taking you for your first hamburger, your first pizza. I took you skydiving, and right before we jumped, you're like, you rescued me from Afghanistan to kill me in Texas. And you guys got all these experiences. We went to Vegas and seen a show. And Hatra went to ride the roller coaster.
The roller coaster. Yeah. She loves that. Yeah. She still wants to go again. Like, I mean, last week we were in Dallas. She wanted to go again, but because it was so expensive, and then the whole family wanted to go, I'm like, no, it's not possible this time. Let's postpone it for future.
We gotta, anybody wants to send the Aziz family to a trip to like Six Flags or something. Hatra and the kids, like roller coasters. With your experience, you've been in America for almost 2 years now. One of the things that you've done already in the heart of giving back is you recognized all these other interpreters that made it to America, even though they served not 8 deployments, not 10 deployments, 20 years of service. Not only the combat experience, but they lost everything. They're here in this new country. Military veterans get the VA. They get programs like Mighty Oaks. They have tons of 43,000 NGOs, non-government organizations, nonprofits that are serving them. But these interpreters, they don't qualify for the VA. They don't have anything to care for them for their PTSD and trauma. Now they're expected to integrate into American culture, not ever having to deal with their trauma. It's a recipe for disaster instead of failure. Our government never put anything in place. And one of the things, you brought that to me right away. We recognize that as a need. We have an amazing supporter at Mighty Oaks, Wayne Hughes Jr., who you met, and helped us fund to put that program together. And so now Mighty Oaks has a program, just like we have for our active duty service members, our veterans, our first responders, specifically for those who served as our allies, as interpreters, Afghan National Army, with 00 units, like specifically for those guys. And we've done how many now?
We actually did the 3 different legacy programs.
We had 3 programs for them.
3 programs. In each program, we can have up to 22 guys.
Yeah.
And it's happening in our Skyros Ranch in California.
And so we got a 4th program coming up.
Yeah, 4th program is coming up in September. And then we have one more program this year in November. And then that will be it for this year. But then for next year, we have more programs. And at the same time, when these guys are coming, they're actually embracing it and loving it. They're like, wow, this is all love. This is something that we never experienced. It's spiritual food for them. I mean, even for myself, every time I teach it, I love it and I enjoy it. And
it's free. We not only is it free for those listening, if you know an interpreter that's came to your community or an Afghan service member that's came and they're here and maybe they need that help, it's totally free, and we even pay for their travel. We'll pay for their flights.
Exactly.
You just got to go to mightyoaksprograms.org, apply for the program. Aziz is leading it for us, and we got a great team, a great staff of instructors, all service members. I say we have U.S. military service members teaching, but now we have graduates. We have an Afghan general.
Yeah,
that's teaching there now.
Exactly. Yeah, there's Afghan general. There is a university professor from one of the Afghan private universities. And there is a national police officer. Actually, this Thursday, I'm going to meet with him. He has put some plans together. He wants to teach the families now because their families are not able to travel all the way to California. Now he wants me to come up with this new curriculum using the same method, the same scripture and everything. From the legacy program, but they want to kind of, make it for the Afghan women and girls that are left behind because trauma, stress, and anxiety and depression for these immigrant families, it's at the very, very highest stage of in their life. Because for the Afghans, the trauma, it starts from their very childhood. Like, as I mentioned before at the beginning of this podcast, Now, because they lost everything, there is a big need for this.
Yeah.
And we are actually looking to make women legacy programs for these Afghan girls also.
Oh, good.
So we are in the process of making this, and thanks to our donors, and thanks to Mighty Youth, and thanks to you for putting this organization together with all these lives that have been saved, and yet are still being saved every day. Stress and anxiety, depression. This is actually something very, very at the highest peak or highest level it's going on in the United States. United States is a beautiful country. There is a lot of infrastructure. There is varieties of foods, varieties of everything, freedom, all kinds of freedoms. Whatever you want to do, it's a blessed nation. This is a real nation. Like some people, some countries, like in Afghanistan, even sometimes they call themselves nation, but Afghanistan is not a nation. It's a small, multi-ethnic groups that came together, and they live in that country. But the representation of a nation is really from the United States. We can learn, and we can have this unity and this love and this care for each other. And it is, my youth is actually going on, and it's happening. It's because of all of this nation that they are helping.
Yeah, yeah. It's privately funded by
Yeah,
patriots who love people. They love this country. They love our soldiers. They love our warriors and active duty, the veterans, the spouses, the first responders,
exactly.
and they've been very supportive of our allies.
Yes.
Very supportive.
Yes, they've been, yeah.
so-
Thanks for all their help and support.
What would you say, now that you're here in America, you've been here 2 years, what would you say some of your favorite things are? I guess that's one question. What are some of your favorite things? And the other question would be, what are some freedoms that you're experiencing here for the first time in your life that you would say that many Americans take for granted?
Well, there are many things of my favorite, like this just being in the United States. This is my favorite. Like,
Yeah.
you're your own boss. You
Yeah.
you don't have to worry about a landmine or an improvised explosive device while you are driving on the road. You don't have to be worried about your children. The public bus comes, school bus, they take it. The teachers are so kind. The education system is very good. I mean, everything. Like my daughters, she's driving now. Like my wife, she's drive. Can you imagine for an Afghan woman or Afghan girl in their life to drive in Afghanistan? This is something like if you bring a star from the skies to the earth. It's that hard over there.
Yeah.
Like especially now by the barbaric regime taking over again. Like everybody would be eyeballing the girls. They will be saying bad words. I mean, mentally, they are not ready. The Afghan society, mentally, they are not ready to live their lives according to the real human standards that people live in very democratic societies, like kind of like United States. I'm really happy, and I really appreciate all my friends and the Lord, especially for giving this opportunity for my children to live their lives to the fullest. Over here, you have all kinds of rights. Children rights, women rights, male rights. I mean, business rights, individual rights. Everything is guaranteed for you. Like some of the children in America, when I see that they're still complaining about life, they are complaining about food, they are complaining about clothes, or they are complaining about the government institutions. I just sit back over there, and I say it in my heart, like, man, you have no idea how hard it is to live the life on the other side of this planet.
Yeah.
People are starving to death. Like currently, I will give you the example of Afghanistan. 500,000, actually half of the population of Afghanistan is living in hunger.
Which 20 million people. There's 40 million people in Afghanistan.
Exactly, like above 96% of the people are living in poverty. there is no employment, there is no education, there is no health care, there is no judicial system. You cannot walk on the public streets together with your daughter, mother, or sister, or any female, especially hand to hand. Even if your mother or sister or any female is sitting with you inside a car and you are going from one location to another location, just in each 5 kilometers, you get stopped, your pockets are being searched, your female is brought to one corner, they take you to another corner, and they ask questions. The Taliban police, they ask questions like, what's your name, your father's name, how are you two related to each other? If the answers does not match to each other, you're done. You are done. Like over here, you sit in the car, you drive, for example, from Texas to Louisiana, you see nobody to stop you and ask you, where are you going? Where are you coming from? This itself is a huge blessing. This itself is a huge pride. I'm really proud of all this security and all this, but it doesn't come free. It
Right.
doesn't come free. It comes with the sacrifice. It comes with all those years that you did, I did, Dano did, or other people did it. And there are still men and women, they are doing it. They are
Yeah.
paying it. Like one of the reasons that United States is involved in the wars outside, because they are going to stop it over there. They are trying to stop it. If they don't stop it over there, then that war is going to come to the borders one day.
Yeah.
And then we will not have this kind of
There's
blessing.
a young generation of Americans that speak so bad of America and talk about how evil America is and how horrible it is to live here.
Mhm.
And I would encourage them to take a field trip to Afghanistan.
Exactly.
And,
exactly. Yeah,
and
me
see,
too.
see a different place. One of the freedoms that I love in America more than any
Mhm.
is our religious liberties. America is one of only 25% of the world's population that
Mhm.
freely get to live in religious freedom and get to worship the God of our choosing,
Yes.
whatever God that is. As you know,
Mm-hmm.
most people know listening to this, I'm a Christian, but in America you could
Yeah.
worship whatever. You have the
Exactly.
freedom to do that as long as you don't not physically harming or someone else.
Exactly.
And you've lived under religious persecution
Yeah.
your whole life,
Yeah.
and now you come here and you've seen different. As what's your feeling of seeing, just witnessing
It's
religious
actually
freedom here in America?
it's a blessing over here. Like this is just a freedom that's given by the government institutions to all human beings to choose. The people over here are given a choice to make. They have a choice whether to be in this religion or that religion or whatever. Like people overseas, they cannot be Christians. If they want to be Christians, they would be slaughtered. Their house will be burned. Their girls will be taken to sex slavery, and all their expensive and private properties will be seized. You cannot say it out loud over there that you are a Christian or you do not have freedom of religion. And as soon as they find out about you, the people, they come together like the old days. They stone you. They stone to death. I mean, it's very hard. Like there are some Christians in Pakistan. Every day we see that how much brutality is going on over there. In
Yeah.
Afghanistan, there are Christians, but they're staying underground.
Yeah.
There are still Christians that I know of over there, but they are staying underground. Like we had a very minority population of the Sikhs. They were assassinated every day, especially by when this barbaric regime took over the government in Afghanistan. They were killed and assassinated and murdered. They were not even safe in their worshiping place. They were sending suicide attackers, and they had to leave. All those guys, they had to leave and abandon everything. Like there was only one Jew was left in Afghanistan in Herat province, and he also left. He had to abandon everything. He was crying. I remember he was, dropping tears. He had to leave Afghanistan. He was saying that Afghanistan is like a mother to him, but because now the terrorists are in the power, there is no opportunity for him to live his life
Yeah.
over there, to continue the very normal life that God has given to him as a gift.
I want to spend the rest of our time I kind of want to wrap up on your story, which is such an incredible story, and thank you for sharing it. But I want to use the rest of our time just to quickly rapid fire through Afghanistan today. I think the listeners, every American, everyone around the world needs to understand what's going on in Afghanistan right now. Not because Afghanistan is the only place of hardship in the world. There's other places around the world. But because Afghanistan's hardship right now is a result of global leadership making a wrong decision. And that's why it's important. And it's important, we have election coming up in 2024 in America, as elections all over the world. It is very important that people understand that these decisions that our political leaders make impact people's lives. We did 20 years of war in Afghanistan. I believe that war, the reason we went there, the war on terror, was won early on, and we probably should have declared a victory.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that we should have stayed there in a support and advisory role for the Afghan National Army and Afghan National Police to not only protect the Afghan people, but to maintain a strategic, strong position in the most strategic place in the world between Iraq, Iran, Russia, and China. That's Afghanistan. And we could have led the international community to stay there like we were and keep peace. Keep stability and peace in that part of the world, keep the Taliban at bay in the mountains of Afghanistan and Pakistan, and also have that strategic stronghold. By forfeiting it and turning it over to our enemies, we created a hotbed for terrorism. And look, we only had 2,500 troops there. We have 80,000 troops in Japan since World War II, and 40,000 in Germany since World War II,
Yes.
and 35,000 in South Korea since the Korea War. We don't keep ourselves in war by staying in places like this. We prevent wars by keeping stability. That's what America does.
Yep.
And so not only was that a mistake for us, but when we left there, we left Americans behind. We left our allies behind. We left 20 million women and little girls to be sexually enslaved as young as 9 years old, to be raped every day for the rest of their life. We took women's education away. We took away women's health care. They're not allowed to be doctors, to see a doctor, to have health care. The sexual and slavery. Our allies are being killed, hunted down, and their throats are being slit. You get the videos all the time.
Yeah.
I get the videos. These are our allies for 20 years. They're being jailed. They're being sold off to the Russians to fight in Ukraine.
Yes.
I'd like you to speak on, I just went through a lot of things, but I want you to speak quickly on some of these things.
Exactly. Actually, from the day when the United States and the world turned their back at Afghanistan, and they thought that they were going to make the right decision, but that was the very, very heartbreaking decision that was made ever. Because one, all those soldiers, the NDS guys, the ANA guys, the National Police, the KPF guys, they were not lucky. Most of them were not lucky to get evacuated. Only a few got lucky to get evacuated.
Who was getting put on the planes that the U.S. government was flying out?
I have no idea. I mean, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, the military evacuation was not very clear. Like all kinds of guys got in there. Like there were some guys that they didn't even serve, but they got lucky to get on that plane.
Because there was no process for that.
There was no process. What happened was they were just saving them from there, bringing them to the military bases somewhere like Germany, like Kuwait, like United States, and then they would let the USCIS to process them there, like the CBP over there, process them. But a lot of guys that they were not even eligible, they didn't even serve, not in the Afghan government, not in the US government, but just, they used that opportunity to sit on the plane and to take off from there and have a future. I don't blame them. I would do the same
I don't blame them either, no.
But honestly, it was not a very, perfect and very well planned evacuation. I mean, they could use the Bagram Air Base very nice and easy before they withdraw to take all those soldiers first, but they didn't. I mean, they pulled the plug in the middle of the night, and then in the morning when we woke up, nobody was over there. For 3 days and 3 nights, I remember the people from the valley stormed to Bagram Air Base. They were stealing guns, they were stealing ammunitions, and they were stealing all those armored land cruisers. But then after 3 days, the Afghan National Army had to go there and take over the whole place just to kind of...
Before they had to evacuate.
Yeah, they had no idea that the U.S. military had already taken off from here.
Yeah.
And then no idea.
We had the Bagram Air Base jail,
Yeah.
which was all of the Taliban and ISIS-K fighters that we had in jail, and
Yeah,
they let all of them out.
exactly. They were all out, and then all the other guys from, like, there were thousands of Taliban, like more than 50,000 of Taliban in the prisons of Kabul, like especially the Policharki jail. That I remember Zalmay Khalilzad, the U.S. special envoy, he was pressuring the Afghan government back then that now they are doing the peace negotiation is going on, and they have to let all the Taliban out so that we can have a very peaceful negotiation, so we can show our, from our side to the bad guys that we are ready to negotiate. But in reality, the Afghan government was pushed to the edge. The Afghan Republic was never invited for those peace talks or negotiations. And that's
who was so the Afghan government wasn't invited to be part of the peace talks.
Yeah.
The United States government and the Taliban, right?
Yes, exactly.
So-
It was Khalilzad, the U.S. special envoy, with the Taliban. I mean, they were talking, they were whatever, they came to an agreement. But then I remember at the time, like on Kabul airport, there was the U.S. military planes. They were evacuating the Afghans. But then I saw a video that the U.S. C-17 is landing in Kandahar airport and, bringing the Taliban back from out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And that was a really heartbreaking situation.
Yeah.
And the Afghanistan has become actually a very dangerous area right now. There are a movement is moving, like the Eastern Turkmenistan movement. Those are some radical Islamists that they came through the corridor of the Wakhan of Badakhshan from China, that they are actually trying to work under the big context or umbrella of the Taliban. They are working, they are the fighters and defenders for all those Muslim Uyghurs that are in China. And then there is the Uzbek Islamic movement from Uzbekistan and Chechnya and some other parts. They are also re-emerging in Afghanistan, and they are every day they are training. They are receiving military trainings. There is another, the Tajik Islamic movement, the Haqqani network, the TTP, Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan. They are over 70,000 in number right now. Actively, they are doing operations in Afghanistan. And Al-Qaeda. This is really funny. Like, sometimes I hear from some very high officials from the government, they're saying that no, now the Taliban are good people. They don't have relationship with the Al-Qaeda. The son of bin Laden has married the daughter of the first Amir of the Taliban. So the daughter of Mullah Omar, whom his son, Yaqub, who is right now the defense minister of the Taliban.
And this isn't a love marriage. This is a arranged marriage to bring two organizations together.
Exactly. They are very closely working with each other. Al-Qaeda is active in Afghanistan today. If we say that they are not active in Afghanistan, that would be so naive.
Well, this is a violation of the Doha Agreement.
Yes, of course.
Which means that the U.S. and NATO should act to revoke the Doha Agreement from the Taliban.
Exactly. But unfortunately, I don't know, for some reason, they're not paying attention to this. And
you're being nice. They're paying attention. They knew from the beginning they don't want to do anything.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's dangerous. Like, if they don't pay attention to it right now, if they don't take action right now, it's growing. Mm-hmm. It's growing. Like, the enemy is being nurtured, the enemy is being growing, and many different groups of them. It's not only one. There is a few different groups. Like, you got the Kandahari Taliban, then you got the Haqqani network. And obviously, you see them that they are announcing the suicide attackers in their army. Every day and every night, they have videos, and there is proof on the internet all over. You can see it, that they are training suicide attackers. Who are they going to attack those suicide attackers? Anybody who doesn't have the same mental ideology according to them is an infidel. If they catch you or me or European or Australian or from any part of the world, they are going to do that. And the other dangerous terrorist group that's really growing over there is the ISK or KP, which they call them like the Islamic State of Khorasan province. They have actually an ideology that they want to make the Islamic Khilafat. But right now, that's what they're doing. They're planning to make their own empire, kind of like they tried to did it in Iraq, in Syria. Now they are in Afghanistan. The families of those ISIS are being brought to the northern of Afghanistan. They are being giving safety, security, food, shelter, and everything they give them. And guess what? In a few years, we will be the witness of a very, very huge tragedy, I'm afraid.
And the U.S. is sending, the United States, under the command of our current White House, is sending what I'm told to be between $48 and $80 million per week to the Taliban.
It's actually $48 or $40 million per 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
That's going by the name of the humanitarian aid. But up to today, even this morning when I was coming, every day I receive phone calls. People are starving to death. That money is not going to the people.
Where do you think the money is going?
It's actually going into the hand of the first, because each ministry of Afghanistan is run by the ISI of Pakistani. The whole country, Afghanistan, is run by a few Pakistani generals. The Taliban, they don't have their own freedom. Their families are in captivity in Pakistan. Their children, their wives, their parents, they are all in captivity of the ISI in Pakistan.
ISI is the Pakistan's version of the Central Intelligence Agency.
Exactly. ISI, that's their intelligence agency.
Yeah.
That's been there since the establishment of this place by the name of Pakistan, which was separated from India, and it has been a cancer to the region.
So they're running Afghanistan.
They are running Afghanistan. They created Mujahideen. They created Taliban. They created Al-Qaeda. Now they are creating KP, and they are helping and aiding all those radical Islamists from the Uzbek Islamic movement, from the Tajik, and then from the Eastern Turkmenistan Islamic movements. They are nurturing all these. They take money from China and they tell China that we are your ally. On the paper, yes, they may be, but in physical reality life, they are not. They take money from United States and they say that we are your ally. And on the paper, they may be an ally of the United States, but in reality, I can tell you that they are not.
Well, I remember you and I are in Peshawar, which, if you don't know where Peshawar is, those listening to me at the time, it was probably the most dangerous place on the planet. You and I are eating lunch in Peshawar, and there's some Pakistan soldiers there, and we're just in regular clothes.
Yes.
And then Taliban pull up, Taliban flags on their trucks, mounted PKMs. They just come back from fighting the U.S. service. They have the mascara on their eyes. They're dusty, tactical vest, AK-47. And while we're sitting there eating, they start intermingling with the Pakistan soldiers.
Exactly.
This is, they're coming across the border from fighting U.S. troops. They're hanging out with the Taliban and U.S. and the Pakistan military hanging out. And the funny part of the story is the Taliban guy he has his AK-47 on, and he sits on the other one's lap, crosses his leg like a woman.
Yeah.
They're holding hands, interlaced fingers, and he's drinking a Pepsi, a long neck Pepsi bottle with a straw.
Yeah.
It was one of the gayest Taliban things I've ever seen.
That was the very funny part of it, but you scared the heck out of me. At that time, you were trying to take out your camera and take a picture of these guys.
It's the gayest thing I ever saw. I gotta get a picture. I gotta get a picture of this. This Taliban guy, and you're like, do not do it, brother.
we would have been killed. We wouldn't be able to talk now.
I trusted you.
At that time, carrying a smartphone, having a camera or a map with you, immediately when the bad guys, they see it, they would accuse you of for spying to the Americans or the ISAF or NATO.
During the evacuation, there was a big debate. I was on Fox News talking about this. I was saying there was thousands of Americans there left behind. The White House and the mainstream media were saying there was 100 Americans there. Now we know from Senate hearings there were thousands of Americans left behind. In my opinion, I've said this publicly plenty of times. It didn't matter if there was one. We don't leave an American behind ever, anywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, where I come from and where you worked, we were scorched to earth to go get an American. But are there Americans still in Afghanistan right now that the U.S. has left behind?
Yes. Yes. There are Americans in the jails of the Taliban. There are Americans who are hiding in many different provinces like Bamiyan, like Parwan province, like some other places. And there are some missionaries that they were there to share the gospel. They are still stuck over there. There are still people, and they cannot come out of fear because they are afraid if they go cross the border. Like every inch of Afghanistan is now being controlled by the ISI of Pakistan through using all these different militant groups. If they catch them, they're done.
I'm going to be the play devil's advocate because I believe you and I know this to be true. But for those listening who might say like they don't believe that, how do you know that Americans are there?
Well, I have friends over there. I have relatives over there. The Afghan media is talking about it, and every day I'm in contact with I have a whole tribe over there.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not exactly in the same places where they were, but they are in different places. And they see things that we don't see things over here. Most of those people are hiding over there with the Afghan friends that they love each other, kind of like you and me, like you were in my scenario over there. It's the same thing, and they give them refugee, they give them food and water, and they're just living over there with them.
Our allies,
yes,
are they being hunted down? Or are they being treated as they promised in a Doha agreement, or are our allies being hunted down and killed?
Our allies, the Afghan National Army, police, NDS department, any other special forces groups, interpreters, contractors, as soon as they cross that border, they are captured and they're taken away, and then they lose them. Their families lose them for a few days and nights, and then after a week or something, they found their dead bodies in the flour sacks and the ditch or in a water well. What happened was, like most of these people who were not capable of being evacuated, they ran away to the neighboring countries. They ran away to Iran, they ran away to Pakistan. Pakistani jails are full of Afghani soldiers. Iranian jails are full of Afghani soldiers. Most of those soldiers, by the Iranian government, they were taken by force and they were sold to the Russian army to fight against the Ukrainians or fight in the Syria. They were used over there. Those poor people, they had to leave their families and children back over there. Their families, their daughters, their females, it is very, very sad to say, it is very shameful to say, out of poverty, out of hunger, today they are selling their body for food. Their girls, their daughters, they're selling their bodies.
They're selling their daughters,
disgrace, how shameful this is, that what our decision did to those allies. Nobody's talking about this. Nobody is covering this. But believe me, all those females that were teachers, all those females in Afghanistan that was the wife or daughter of an interpreter or a contractor or a soldier or somebody who was serving either directly or indirectly, now today, because they do not have a male support, that for food they have to sell their body. Can you imagine?
And they're having to sell their daughters as young as 9 years old.
Exactly, just for food. I mean, there is a big human crisis over there going on.
Just so people know the numbers, 20 million women and little girls are living in sexual slavery right now. When I say that, living in sexual slavery, because to be a woman in Afghanistan is to be sexually enslaved. And if anybody, you can't say you stand up for human rights if you're not willing to speak out for these Afghan girls.
Yes, exactly.
Where's our equipment, our military equipment? Millions of dollars in U.S. military.
Those equipments, actually, some of it is still in the hand of Taliban. Some of them were they were taken by the Pakistani military and they were exported to Pakistan. Some of them were sold to the those terroristic groups that they fight against India and Kashmir. Some of that were given to those people by the ISI of Pakistan. And it's in the black market today. Al-Qaeda has it. All the radical Islamist group, they have the American military equipments. Those equipments that was given to the Afghan National Army, to the police, to the Indians guys, now it's in the hand of the global terroristic groups in Afghanistan, in the neighboring countries of Afghanistan, and even far from that one.
Yeah, I've even
Like
heard. I've even heard some Ukraine.
Hamas has it. Even Hamas has it. I don't know. Somehow through Pakistan, they probably smuggled it in over there.
I've heard of U.S. equipment showing up in Hamas.
Yeah.
Fighting Israelis, and I've heard of it showing up in Ukraine.
Yeah.
Fighting against the Ukrainians.
Mhm.
Last thing I want to say. I wish Aziz and I had time to get into this. The resistance. Ahmad Massoud. If you guys don't know who Ahmad Massoud is, look it up. 2 days before 9/11, Ahmad Massoud was the leader of the Northern Alliance. Osama bin Laden brilliantly, you got to give him credit, brilliantly assassinated Ahmad Massoud to break up the Northern Alliance, knowing we would need an ally to go after the Taliban. Fast forward to now, Ahmad Massoud's son is leading the resistance in Afghanistan. Our friend Sean Ryan released the episode with Ahmad Massoud, exclusive interview, where he's talking about the resistance in Afghanistan. Most of the commandos that we trained, that we fought with, are fighting back against the Taliban. For the go listen to that episode with Ahmad Massoud. Also, Sean Ryan is leading a petition for Ahmad Massoud to have a voice in Washington, D.C. Our government is working with the Taliban, our enemy of 20 years, but our government has blacklisted Ahmad Massoud from having a voice to represent our allies of 20 years in the United States. He's not allowed to speak before Congress. He's not allowed to come to the United States. And Sean Ryan is doing a petition. So go on Sean Ryan's page. We're going to put some links on our YouTube to go to Sean Ryan's page. Sign this petition for our government to do the right thing and at least hear the other side of the story from the resistance fighters of our allies fighting for their families and their freedoms because of a mess we left in a nation that we handed over to our enemy and the terrorist group, the Taliban and ISIS. Watch the episode, sign a petition. I wish we could spend more time talking about it because I love this topic. Yeah. But I want to leave you with the last thought. What is the last thing that you want to say in this episode? The last thing you want to speak to everyone listening, to the American people, to the world, that you want to say about Afghanistan in its current state today?
First of all, because I strongly believe in prayers, I ask every man and woman to please keep the Afghan women, children in your prayers, and may the Lord have mercy over them, because gender apartheid is a heinous crime that is happening today in Afghanistan. All those humanitarian organizations or human rights organizations, they're not talking about it. I remember the cries and tears of those girls that when we left, they stood. They stood with their signboards and they showed to the world, and they were resisting against the Taliban. During the day, Taliban didn't touch them, but at night, the Taliban hunted them from their houses and brought them to the Taliban jails or police stations, and they took off their clothes and they gang raped them. The internet is full of those videos. I cannot take names for you right now. If you just search the Afghan girls raped by the Taliban, you will see their interviews on YouTube, on other social media channels. Some of them are still over there. Some of them were tortured and killed. From over the night, the Taliban soldiers, they go to the house of the people, and because the males are not over there, the females are defenseless. They are being raped every night, every day, and some of them are selling their bodies because of food. So I'm saying that the world must act now and recognize the gender apartheid as a heinous crime in Afghanistan. They should recognize that. At least if they cannot do something else, at least they should do this one for the sake of the Afghan women and girls who had nothing to do with all this, what happened to them.
Explain to the listeners how the Taliban will treat and view a woman who's been raped. Who to us, logically in America, if a woman's raped, she's a victim. There should be compassion for her. She should be treated as a victim and cared for. But to the Taliban, if a woman is raped, how do they view her now?
One of the girls actually, she had to leave the country. Like what happened was she was fighting for her rights, for the women rights, and for the free rights that God gifted them. So the Taliban, they took these ladies to the Taliban jail, and from over the night, they brought all those dirty, barbaric soldiers, and they sat down, they forced the girl, they told them to take off all your clothes because you want democracy. Now, democracy means this, to take off all your clothes and dance in front of us. And that's how they look at those girls.
But once they're raped, they're trash now.
They are trash. They're trashed, and they torture them and they kill them. They don't leave them alive, because if they leave them, like a few of them, they let them alive, they run away to Germany. Today they are in Germany, and every day they are making video clips and they are talking, they are interviewing, they're talking about what happened to them in the jail. But those other ones now, the Taliban are actually, they're just... They picked the girls up from the street. If you are a girl and you walk by yourself on the streets of Kabul today, you're being picked up by this barbaric group and you're brought to the jail, where they do not have a female police. There is no justice system in the process in Afghanistan. It's all a bunch of barbaric males, all terrorists. They're making decisions about your future, about your life. That desperately the women are suffering over there today.
So I'm sure you've impacted a lot of people by saying that. What could people do? You said speak out. Like, what could people do to actually take action there?
Over there, actually, once again, pray, because prayer is more effective than at least contact your senators and congressmen, congresswomen, and just file a petition. And this gender apartheid must be recognized as a heinous crime by the whole world, because nobody's paying attention about this. Nobody's really talking about this. All those women, all those children, they're just sitting over there and they are praying. And one day God is gonna ask us that at least we had the ability to raise our voice. Jesus says that if you are seeing something going on bad in somewhere, raise your voice. If you cannot raise your voice, try to stop it with your hands. If you cannot stop it with your hands, at least pray for it. That's all you can do.
Yeah. Thank you, Aziz, man.
You're welcome.
So good to do this. I could have we could have went all day.
Yeah.
That's great. All right, guys.
It was really nice.
We'll see you next week. Hey guys, thank you for watching this episode of The Resilient Show. I hope you enjoyed it. If you hadn't already, please click subscribe so you don't miss any future content. We have so many amazing guests scheduled and you don't want to miss it.